Introduction. Zhu Zhen traverses into the Ming Dynasty and awakens a system that grants him access to the dimensional gate, enabling connections to myriad parallel worlds. By conquering these realms, he stands to gain substantial rewards. The first world he encounters is that of Game of Thrones. Relying solely on himself seems an insurmountable challenge thus. Zhu Zhen turns his gaze towards Zhu Yuanzhang, seeking military assistance from the Ming Dynasty to navigate this perilous journey. Thus begins Zhu Zhen's grand expedition across the multiverse, as he embarks on a quest to conquer one world after another. In a time when ordinary citizens of the Ming Dynasty struggle against insurmountable odds, he vows to bestow upon them newfound strength. Years later, the Ming Dynasty flourishes with boundless martial prowess, boasting formidable mech units, cultivators, psychics, martial arts alliances, and Astartes. Observing the myriad worlds subjugated by the celestial Ming Empire, Zhu Yuanzhang beams with delight. Meanwhile, Zhu Zhen, the supreme emperor of mankind and conqueror of dimensions, contemplates the expansion of his imperial dominion. In the vast multiverse, everything that the Zhu family covets shall inevitably belong to them. One day, he shall make all understand why the multiverse bears the surname Zhu. 001 The weakened world of magical tides. The Game of Thrones realm. Beneath the radiant sun, the sky stretches infinitely clear. In the capital of the Ming Empire, the streets outside the royal palace are abuzz with life. Along Hongwu Avenue, caravan after caravan carries heavy cargo, while shops line the thoroughfare, teeming with pedestrians. At this moment, a soft sigh emanates from the Prince of Chu's residence on Hongwu Avenue. It has been 16 long years since I crossed over to the Ming. Am I destined to languish in fate's grip? Zhu Zhen muses, casting a complex gaze around him. A time traveler, he has spent a full 16 years in the Ming Dynasty. Fortunately, he is the son of Zhu Yuanzhang, which assures him a life of comfort until his father's death. However, the thought of the ensuing turmoil after Zhu Yuanzhang's demise, instigated by the princes, weighs heavily on his mind. Many, including princes, are fated to perish in the chaos. Zhu Zhen recalls that Prince Xiang, Zhu Bai, met his end at the hands of his own nephew, Zhu Yunwen. What shall I do? Zhu Zhen laments, his face etched with melancholy. As Zhu Yuanzhang's illegitimate son, his future prospects are uncertain, even survival seems a precarious hope. Suddenly, a mechanical voice resonates in his ear, ding. Dimensional gate system binding successful. A system? A golden finger? Zhu Zhen's expression transforms into one of unbridled joy. Is this his golden opportunity in this new world? What functions does the system possess? He inquires eagerly. The dimensional gate system can open gateways to countless parallel worlds. By completing tasks of conquest or alliance in these realms, rewards can be earned, the system explains. World of Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire, difficulty 1 star. World of Ling Cage Wasteland, difficulty 1 star. World of Qin Dynasty, difficulty 2 stars. World of Great Navigation, difficulty 3 stars. World of Bleach, difficulty 3 stars. World of Do Patian Kong, difficulty 3 stars. Main World, Dominator World. World of Warhammer, difficulty 5 stars. Forbidden Zone of Life, 5-star subworld. Main World, Veil of the Sky World. World of Primordial Chaos, difficulty 8 stars. This system is indeed intelligent. It adapts conquer what can be subdued and ally with what cannot until the time is ripe for conquest. Zhu Zhen reflects, his eyes sparkling with excitement as he contemplates the differences in strength among worlds of similar difficulty ratings. Surely, the Ling Cage Wasteland is more perilous than the realm of Game of Thrones. With visions of infinite possibilities swirling in his mind, Zhu Zhen resolves to conquer these worlds, opening gateways to new adventures. Should he succeed, the conquered realms will forever establish a dimensional gate with the Ming world, allowing the transport of people and goods and granting Zhu Zhen access to new worlds. If he fails, he would merely return to his original realm. Calm down. Breathe. Zhu Zhen exhales deeply, striving to steady his racing heart. Excellent. Truly splendid. As he meticulously reviews the system's information, his excitement intensifies. He is convinced of the existence of these parallel worlds. By initiating conquest, he can bring treasures from these realms into the Ming Dynasty, or even before entering the worlds. Thus, in addition to the system's rewards, I shall also acquire treasures from the conquered worlds. Take the Do Patian Kong world, for instance. There are countless treasures to be had: exotic flames, the burning decision, emperor pills, Yin and Medusa. Eager to engage in his first conquest, Zhu Zhen cannot contain his anticipation. He opens the system panel to examine the gateway that will lead him to adventure. Dimensional gate, conquest coefficient, 0, transport capacity, 3,000 people. Cooldown time, 6 months. Upon reading this, Zhu Zhen is filled with queries. System, what do the conquest coefficient, transport capacity, and cooldown mean? The conquest coefficient reflects the host's completion of conquest tasks in parallel worlds. As the host conquers more worlds, this coefficient will increase, expanding transport capacity. Currently, the dimensional gate can only transport 3,000 individuals at once, after which it will enter a cooldown period of 6 months. Zhu Zhen nods, realizing that the dimensional gate possesses growth attributes, enhancing its capabilities with each conquest. Ding! Would you like to open the 1-star dimensional gate to the Game of Thrones world? Should you abandon this mission, it will be deemed a failure, and the next opening of the dimensional gate will occur in 6 months. The system's voice brings Zhu Zhen back to reality. The world of Game of Thrones? A song of ice and fire. His smile freezes, replaced by a look of disbelief. Is this the world renowned as the song of death and bloodshed? In the realm of Game of Thrones, reality reigns supreme. Those of lesser strength will find themselves in a terrifying hell, a fate worse than death. Conversely, those who are powerful, able to face multitudes, or wield supreme authority, will revel in a paradise of indulgence, free to act as they please without consequence, be it in unknown duels or chaotic battles. All are susceptible to the grim realities of this world, where no one is spared, and where the threshold of mercy is non-existent. Zhu Zhen could never have anticipated that the first world he needed to conquer would be one as challenging as that of Game of Thrones. Indeed, the realm of Game of Thrones is not merely a simple backdrop of magic and swords. It is a world rife with the ebb and flow of magical tides. Centuries ago, the Valyrians were renowned as the Dragon Empire, having acquired the ability to tame and ride dragons amidst the 14 flames. They constructed the most advanced civilization known over 4,000 years ago, a civilization that persists to this day. Their dragons numbered in the thousands, and they were not the diminutive creatures that emerged following the decline of magical tides, with heads the size of apples. Most of these dragons were contemporaneous with the fearsome Valyrian, the Black Dread, if not even more formidable. The so-called House of the Dragon, the Targaryens, who ruled over the 7 kingdoms for centuries and served as the guardians of Westeros, were merely a minor dragon family among many in ancient Valyria. Their ascendancy was merely a stroke of fortune, as they were prophesied by their ancestors to leave Valyria and arrive in Westeros ahead of the cataclysmic disaster that befell their homeland. The thought of thousands of dragons conjures a terrifying image, such immense power that even the mountain of beasts could scarcely contain it. Furthermore, prior to the decline of magical tides, the water magic of the Rhoynar was formidable enough to contend with dragons. It is said that over 300 dragons were deployed by the Valyrians to conquer the water magic renowned nation of Rhoynar, ultimately succeeding only when the Rhoynar's mother river evaporated. This illustrates how daunting it is for Zhu Zhen to forge his own path in the realm of Game of Thrones, where he is but an ordinary man without any weapons, likely to perish within a single episode as an inconsequential bystander. The mere thought of the fire-breathing dragons sends shivers down his spine. Should I abandon this endeavor and wait 6 months to select a new world? Zhu Zhen mused, feeling utterly helpless. In the world of Game of Thrones, even now, dragons are a rare sight, with only 3 hatchlings still nursing from Daenerys, and water mages are virtually non-existent. Yet in a world where the song of swords and blood reigns supreme, the powerful knights and warriors find amusement in slaughter. Confronting a monster like the Mountain would be a death sentence, and even encountering Jaime would yield no chance of survival. He is merely an ordinary man, with little combat training and only a rudimentary ability to ride a horse. Wait a moment. Zhu Zhen seemed to have an epiphany, his expression shifting from despair to a glimmer of hope. If it takes me a long time to conquer the world of Game of Thrones by my own efforts, I'm still a member of the Zhu family. Zhu Zhen's gaze turned towards the direction of the Forbidden City, imbued with profound significance. As long as he accomplishes the conquest, whether through his own efforts or those of others by facilitating entry into this alternate world through his dimensional gate, he shall receive the rewards associated with completing the world quest. Old man, Zhu Yuanzhang, 0028, father, who could defy nations? Zhu Yuanzhang, starting with half a bowl, The empire was won through battle. The paragon of might, who sees the world from south to north, is my father. The most stable crown prince in history, my father was requested to ascend the throne by my brother. The only feudal prince in history to successfully rebel, the general of the northern campaigns, and the heir to the legacy of Wu Lao, that would be my brother as well. The sole emperor who was successfully rebelled against by a feudal prince, I shall merely demonstrate how to conquer, is my nephew. What? Who am I? I am, of course, the sixth son of the illustrious Zhu family. The mere thought of being born into such a talented clan as the Zhu family instilled a sense of confidence in Zhu Zhen. His esteemed father, Zhu Yuanzhang, was a father capable of defying nations, the Hongwu emperor. At present, his father commands 1 million elite troops of the Ming Dynasty, all seasoned warriors. Furthermore, during this early period of the Ming Dynasty, it was a time of great prosperity. The military nobles were flourishing, and Zhu Yuanzhang commanded countless valiant warriors. Xu Da, Lan Yu, Mu Ying, Tang He, Li Wenzhong, Fu Yud. Truly a generation at the peak of martial prowess. Compared to the era of Zhu Di, they were only stronger. At this very moment, the world of Game of Thrones is one where mortals vie for supremacy. Since the calamity of the Blood Dragon, the dragon families have engaged in internecine strife for years, and with the last dragon's demise, all of Westeros has lost trace of these majestic creatures. Now, Westeros relies solely on the sword for power. If I were to reveal the matter of the dimensional gate to my father and weave a myth to convince him of its truth, he would surely turn the Game of Thrones world upside down, effortlessly conquering those medieval barbarians. A smile flickered in Zhu Zhen's dark eyes. Compared to the undefeated military legion of the Ming Dynasty, the medieval denizens of Game of Thrones, who still hold some reverence for chivalry, would be utterly no match. In terms of equipment, the Ming army, with its superior weaponry and even firearms, would dominate with overwhelming force. In terms of numbers, the Ming army boasts millions, while Westeros could scarcely muster a coalition of 100,000. Regarding soldier quality, the Ming soldiers are only inferior to the Northern Wolf Lord's forces. And in terms of generals, they would undoubtedly achieve a decisive victory. Leading the Ming Dynasty to conquer the world of Game of Thrones, I can simply recline and reap the completion rewards. This plan is quite splendid. Without hesitation, Zhu Zhen acted swiftly. He has always possessed the audacity to dream and the courage to act. Soon, within the forbidden city of the Ming Dynasty, in the Qianqing Palace, a faint mist began to swirl. A mysterious luminous portal emerged in the imperial harem. This portal was shrouded in mystery, radiating dazzling light and exquisite beauty. The phenomenon threw the palace into disarray, with numerous eunuchs, guards, and palace maids exclaiming in astonishment and kneeling. Even Zhu Yuanzhang was stirred from his composure. What is this? In the back garden of the Zhu family, the heart of the palace, why does such a phenomenon appear? Zhu Yuanzhang exclaimed in disbelief. Rushing to the scene, Zhu Biao and Tang He were equally astonished, their mouths agape in shock. None could have anticipated that a portal would suddenly appear here. This phenomenon resembles a door. Zhu Biao gasped. Through this door, one can vaguely discern houses and hear the sounds of livestock. Could it truly be a portal? Zhu Biao's observations were indeed superfluous. As the architect of this occurrence, Zhu Zhen smirked quietly, while Zhu Yuanzhang calmly mused, could it lead to the realm of immortals? Congratulations on your ascension. Upon witnessing this, Tang He immediately expressed his congratulations. This must be the dwelling of immortals. The Ascendant has expelled the Tartars and restored the Middle Kingdom. Tirelessly managing state affairs for the benefit of the people, this act must have moved the heavens. The Immortal has come to open the gateway to the realm of immortals. I congratulate your majesty. Behind Zhu Yuanzhang, the officials, both civil and military, rushed to kneel in reverence, all exclaiming in exuberance. Their eyes sparkled with excitement, and no one doubted Tang He's conjecture. Even Zhu Yuanzhang could not suppress his excitement. Could this truly be the abode of immortals? Are the immortals inviting us as guests? Have the immortals been moved by our sincere devotion? Yes, it must be so. The miraculous celestial phenomenon before them, coupled with Zhu Yuanzhang's growing frailty and fears of mortality, led him to embrace this belief wholeheartedly. He took a deep breath, suppressing the overwhelming joy within him, and excitedly inquired, could it be that heaven favors my family, the Zhu? Has a celestial being bestowed auspicious signs upon our Ming? Your Majesty, I believe it prudent to send someone to investigate. Li Shanchang hastily suggested, prioritizing safety. After a moment of contemplation, Zhu Yuanzhang nodded in agreement. Suda promptly waved his hand, and a dozen well-armored imperial guards prepared to step through the luminous portal. However, as they approached, they were repelled one by the light. Even Suda found himself barred from crossing the threshold. Ha ha ha! Zhu Yuanzhang, witnessing this spectacle, felt joy rather than anger and heartily proclaimed, "It appears the celestial being wishes to avoid the presence of mere mortals. Step aside. Allow me to advance." With that, Zhu Yuanzhang eagerly stepped forward, believing this to be his destined encounter with the divine. Yet, contrary to Zhu Yuanzhang's lofty expectations, reality proved to be starkly different. He too was cast back by the luminous portal. "Your Majesty, be cautious." The crowd rushed forward, fearing the light might harm Zhu Yuanzhang. Regaining his composure, Zhu Yuanzhang felt a surge of panic. He had never anticipated that even he could not enter the portal. Could it be that even I have not gained the portal's approval? Zhu Yuanzhang pondered, perplexed. Why? This extraordinary phenomenon cannot be without reason. Someone must have instigated it. At that moment, Liu Bowen, who had arrived, spoke slowly. Upon hearing this, Zhu Yuanzhang regarded the matter with even greater seriousness. Who could it possibly be? Could it be someone from my Zhu family? If it were indeed a member of my family, it would be acceptable. However, if not, the prospect of an outsider harnessing such celestial favor was truly alarming. We must find this individual, even if it means turning the entire Ming Dynasty upside down. This person must be located, for they pose an immense threat. As Zhu Yuanzhang was lost in thought, at that moment, from a less conspicuous corner of the crowd, collect. With a gentle wave of Zhu Zhen's hand, a stream of colorful light descended into his grasp. It was the essence of the dimensional portal, transformed into a radiant orb. Gulp! A wave of astonishment swept through the crowd. Witnessing the grand portal transform into this orb, many present could not help but swallow hard. A celestial artifact? This is indeed a celestial artifact. At this juncture, Zhu Yuanzhang too was stirred by the unexpected turn of events. He turned, along with the hundreds of eyes present, towards the direction where the portal had vanished, and only one figure was seen holding the luminous orb. Could it be the Sixth Prince? Old Six. The prophecy of the celestial family. Is the fate of the Ming Dynasty destined to last only 3 centuries? We must endeavor to extend it ourselves. Long live my father. Do you have business with me? At this moment, the crowd had been dispersed, leaving only a portion of the Zhu family members and the backbone of the Ming Dynasty. Within the Qianqing Palace, in the study of Zhu Yuanzhang, Zhu Zhen respectfully inquired, "Ah, sixth brother, before the civil and military officials. You mentioned witnessing the prophecies of certain celestial beings at the Gate of All Wonders. What exactly were they? You must divulge." The Gate of All Wonders, as named by Zhu Zhen, serves to encapsulate the essence of the dimensional portal. The intention was to provide a coherent explanation, for the dimensional portal seemed overly abstract, while the Gate of All Wonders exuded an ethereal charm, reminiscent of divine beings. Seeing that the plan had succeeded to a great extent, Zhu Zhen felt immense joy within. Yet his expression remained unchanged as he slightly bowed and stated, "I report to Father, the prophecies of the celestial beings are not plentiful. However, I dare not speak of them. What is there to fear in speaking?" Noticing Zhu Zhen's hesitation, Zhu Yuanzhang waved his hand grandly and declared, "Sixth brother, speak freely, and I shall grant you clemency." "Yes, Father." The prophecy inscribed at the Gate of All Wonders clearly states that the Ming Dynasty shall endure for merely 300 years. Within that time, we shall face unprecedented calamities. In an instant, the accumulation of generations and the industrious legacy of our ancestors will be overturned. Upon hearing this, Zhu Biao's gaze flickered with shock. Only 300 years. Zhu Di swallowed hard. What? 300 years? Then I, as a prince, shall enjoy a splendid reign. And future generations will also thrive. In stark contrast to Zhu Di's elation, Zhu Yuanzhang appeared momentarily stunned, struggling to articulate. Is it true that the Ming Dynasty is destined for only 300 years? No. Since this prophecy foresees the future, there must exist a means of resolution. Sixth brother, does the Gate of All Wonders provide any hints? To untie the knot, one must be the one who tied it. Since the prophecy emanates from the Gate of All Wonders, it must also contain the solution. In a moment of realization, Zhu Yuanzhang eagerly inquired, "Certainly. The Gate of All Wonders serves as a portal connecting the realms of heaven and earth. Beyond our vast world, numerous smaller realms have been established. Our Ming Dynasty exists within the grand world, while these smaller realms are all subsidiaries. The Zhu family can acquire various opportunities within them. Zhu Zhen did not intentionally lower his voice, yet all who heard him could not suppress their astonishment. The gate of all wonders. The grand world. The realms of heaven and earth. Subsidiary worlds. Such magnificence. Are there opportunities to prolong the fate of the Ming Dynasty? Zhu Yuanzhang hastily inquired. Indeed, there are. Zhu Zhen replied with a slight smile. With the dimensional portal as a golden key, we can undoubtedly extend the destiny of the Ming Dynasty. Let it not be merely 300 years. Even 3,000 or 30,000 years is within reason, as long as one can ascend to a higher realm, such as that of the primordial saints. A century would be but a fleeting moment. As his words fell, countless fervent gazes were directed towards the talisman before Zhu Zhen. At this very moment, I can unlock the portal to a realm of wonders, he proclaimed. This world is known as the realm of power struggles. If we can conquer and claim this domain, we shall extend the destiny of the Ming Dynasty for 50 years. Moreover, we shall receive countless gifts from the celestial beings. Zhu Zhen's declaration struck Zhu Yuanzhang's heart like a heavy hammer. 50 years, a generation, and the prospect of receiving gifts from the legendary immortals. It is astonishing that the Ming Dynasty has only enjoyed 300 years of fortune. However, since a solution exists, we must endeavor to prolong it ourselves. Yet, invading a world is no simple feat. Lao Lu, do you possess ample intelligence? Zhu Yuanzhang inquired, his gaze fervent as it rested upon Zhu Zhen. 004. Lead the Imperial Guards into battle. Zhu Zhen replied, his countenance unwavering. From the information I have gathered, this world is fraught with peril. Not only are there tens of thousands of troops standing in our way, but fire-breathing dragons also lurk within. Upon hearing this, the expressions of those present shifted dramatically. The existence of such formidable creatures as dragons in that small world was something only spoken of in the legends of the Ming Dynasty. Nevertheless, with the immortals' assistance in prolonging our fortune, they will undoubtedly bestow upon us gifts. With the means of celestial beings at our disposal, we need not fear those dragons. Zhu Zhen asserted, a confident smile gracing his lips. He was aware that the rewards for completing the task of world conquest were phased, and it was not necessary to fully conquer the world to receive the benefits. The evaluation criteria for the first phase of the task were merely to capture a city and become its lord. Though the rewards for the second phase had yet to be announced, Zhu Zhen surmised that they would require at least the standing of a king among the 7 great nations. In other words, he aimed to become a dominant power, on par with the Lannister family of Casterly Rock, the Baratheon family of Storm's End, the Stark family of the North, and the Tyrell family of Highgarden. These families represented the ruling forces of the 7 kingdoms before the Targaryens united them under the Iron Throne. Zhu Zhen felt a surge of confidence. With Zhu Yuanzhang's backing of 3,000 men, he believed he could swiftly accomplish the first phase of the task. The rewards from the system might very well be sufficient to rival the dragons. Excellent. With the assistance of the immortals, we shall proceed with confidence. Let us promptly organize our troops. Zhu Yuanzhang declared without hesitation. In that moment, he was brimming with vigor. Having recently concluded the Northern Campaign and decisively ended the rule of the Northern Yuan. While there remained several restless factions in Yunnan to the southwest and other regions attempting to oppose the Ming Empire, these were trifles in the face of the Ming's fortune. As long as we can obtain the gifts from the immortals, it will be but a trivial task for the Ming to deal with these defeated foes. If that is the case, let us commence. Your Majesty, I shall now unlock the gateway of wonders. Under the intense and expectant gazes of many, Zhu Zhen steadied his emotions and stepped into the courtyard. His heart raced and his hands trembled. After a moment of contemplation, he composed himself. With a flick of his fingers, the orb of light in his hand transformed into a brilliant stream, cascading into the rear courtyard of the Qianqing Palace. Instantly, the space rippled, expanding into a shimmering portal several miles in circumference, where glimpses of the landscape beyond could be discerned. The sound of ocean waves crashing against the rocks resonated, vividly real amidst the kaleidoscope of light in the realm of the Ming Dynasty. At this moment, Zhu Zhen received a system notification. The stages of conquest in the realm of Game of Thrones are as follows. The first stage, become a lord of a region. The second stage, conquer any 7 major powers. The third stage, unify the chaotic continent of Westeros and destroy the Iron Throne. The fourth stage, prevent or conquer the Mother of Dragons, Daenerys Stormborn, and solidify the dominion over Westeros. The fifth stage, eliminate the White Walkers from the land of eternal winter and conquer all territories beyond Westeros. These are the 5 task stages for completing the Game of Thrones world. Zhu Zhen casually shrugged. This aligned perfectly with his expectations. in the simulated tides of weakened Westeros. Aside from the White Walkers, it seemed the only significant threat was the 3 dragons of the Mother of Dragons. Beyond Westeros, however, the challenges were far more complex, with numerous enigmatic legacies awaiting resolution. Placing these difficulties in the 5th stage was undoubtedly sensible. Nonetheless, to accomplish the 1st stage, he needed to meticulously plan the 3,000 individuals required. He was compelled to explain to Zhu Yuanzhang, "Your Majesty, my abilities are limited. I can only send 3,000 people through the Gateway of Wonders to the world of Game of Thrones. After today, I will require 6 months of recuperation before I can reopen the portal. How does Your Majesty wish to proceed with the dispatch?" Zhu Yuanzhang fell silent for a moment before addressing the assembly. "Initially, I intended to lead the expedition in person. However, our Ming Dynasty remains unsettled. Beset by internal strife and external threats, the country cannot endure a day without a sovereign. We cannot ascertain when we may return from the world beyond the Gateway of Wonders. Therefore, we must ensure the stability of the Ming Dynasty before I embark on this expedition." He glanced at the Crown Prince, Zhu Biao. Though Zhu Biao had reached adulthood and garnered considerable respect among the literati and military officials, Zhu Yuanzhang felt he was not yet a qualified ruler. He required at least a year of hands-on guidance. "Thus, I have decided. Let Prince Chu, Zhu Zhen, lead the expedition in my stead. To see Prince Chu is to see me." Zhu Yuanzhang first entrusted the significant power to Zhu Zhen, being chosen by the Gateway of Wonders. "This young man must possess extraordinary qualities. Muing, heed my command. I shall obey." Accompanied by the decrees of Zhu Yuanzhang, a robust man stepped forth from the throng and knelt on one knee. "You shall lead 1,000 from the Tian Su Guard, 1,000 from the Yulin Guard, and 1,000 from the Shun Wu Guard to accompany the Prince of Chu on his expedition. The Tian Su and Yulin Guards are the elite of the Imperial Army." Zhu Yuanzhang established the command posts for each guard, appointing commanders of the 3rd rank. He also retained the traditional 17 guards: Wuda Guard, Longxiang Guard, Baotao Guard, Fei Xiong Guard, Wei Wu Guard, Guang Wu Guard, Xing Wu Guard, Ing Wu Guard, Ingyang Guard, Shao Qi Guard, Shen Wu Guard, Xiong Wu Guard, Feng Xiang Guard, Tian Su Guard, Zhen Wu Guard, Xian Wu Guard, and Yulin Guard. These soldiers, selected through rigorous training, are robust and skilled warriors. Zhu Yuanzhang swiftly issued orders. With prompt compliance, the well-equipped 3,000 elite troops gathered swiftly. 2 individuals were chosen to fill the positions of Mu Ying and Zhu Zhen. Upon witnessing this, Zhu Zhen felt a surge of excitement. Were it not for Zhu Yuanzhang sitting beside him, he might have burst into laughter. The plan proceeded smoothly. His journey of conquest in this otherworldly realm had officially commenced. 005 An unexpected visitor at Highgarden. On this day, in the southern part of the Hewan region, near the northern shore of the Summer Sea, west of the Crimson Mountains, a dazzling white light suddenly illuminated the sky. A radiant, divine light, akin to the gates of the heavens, opened from the void. Subsequently, rows of soldiers emerged, clad in exquisite and imposing black light armor, their expressions solemn. Fierce gazes fixed upon the horizon. The aura of bloodshed emanating from the entire legion during their march was enough to instill terror in the hearts of their enemies. These were Zhu Yuanzhang's elite Imperial Guards, the most exceptional forces of the Ming Dynasty, veteran soldiers who had fought alongside him for years. The Armée de la Armée. Their imposing presence resembled divine troops descending from the heavens, invoking the wrath of the gods. Those fortunate enough to witness this scene among the barbarians of the Crimson Mountains fervently prayed for divine mercy. Yet, Zhu Zhen's aim was not solely those barbaric witnesses. These indigenous tribes had hunted in the Crimson Mountains for years, disconnected from the 7 kingdoms of Westeros, often referred to as the Southern Savages. Zhu Zhen's objective was to seize the heartland of the 7 kingdoms, King's Landing. At present, his primary target was naturally Highgarden, the entirety of the Hewan region. The following day, north of the Crimson Mountains, south of Highgarden, and east of the Old Lands, Zhu Zhen and Mu Ying rode forth to survey the land. Behind them, 3,000 troops stood at the ready, awaiting commands. This time, Zhu Zhen's contingent of 3,000 elite troops comprised 2,000 infantry and 1,000 cavalry. Originally, he had desired 3,000 cavalry. However, due to time constraints, Zhu Yuanzhang could only procure 1,000 steeds from the imperial city. These 1,000 horses formed the Shun Wu Iron Cavalry. Each member of the Imperial Guard was battle-hardened and skilled in horsemanship. After a brief adjustment, they transformed into a formidable cavalry unit. The remaining Imperial Guards and Celestial Strategists naturally assumed the role of infantry. At that moment, Mu Ying's heart surged with fervor. He initially believed it to be merely a trivial skirmish. However, upon arriving in this vast realm, he discovered an astonishing expanse. The boundless ocean, the seemingly endless mountains, and the sweeping plains and wilderness filled him with ambition. If he could expand the territories of the Ming Empire in such a world, he would undoubtedly be credited with the glory of conquest, which could lead to promotions or even noble titles. Is this the first target you seek to seize, my lord? Mu Ying inquired, gesturing towards a distant stronghold approximately 10 miles away, situated on the plains beyond the mountains. This fortress was ancient, its weathered walls covered in moss. Atop its tower, soaring 30 to 50 meters high, fluttered a white banner emblazoned with swarms of black and orange butterflies, the emblem of the castle's owner. The Lord of Highland Castle, the Mullendal family. The current head of the household was none other than Lord Martin Mullendal. Of course, this task is relatively straightforward for us. However, we must not allow our soldiers to lower their guard, Zhu Zhen remarked calmly. He had already engaged with local villagers, bound by the constraints of duty, to gather intelligence. Thanks to the system's innate functionalities, Zhu Zhen was proficient in all languages and scripts of this world, including the exceedingly ancient Frarian tongue. He speculated that this ability would hold true in other realms as well. Through the villagers' enthusiastic disclosures, Zhu Zhen gleaned several crucial pieces of information. Firstly, he had arrived in this world around the time of the War of the Five Kings. Recently, the legendary Emperor Joffrey had brutally fulfilled his promise by executing the Honorable Eddard Stark, the head of House Stark. What is this? Is it not an act of bullying against the virtuous? How cruel and ruthless. Consequently, the young wolf lord of House Stark had descended south, claiming the title of king in the north, leading his forces into the Riverlands to confront the Duke of Casterly Rock, Tywin Lannister, the new hand of the king. The standoff between these two great factions had also incited numerous lesser families to take sides, such as the notable Tully family of the Riverlands. Furthermore, the Baratheon brothers had both laid claim to the throne. The younger brother, Renly Baratheon, was supported by Highgarden as the new king, while the elder brother, Stannis Baratheon, had rallied his forces from Dragonstone. Naturally, Highland Castle had responded to the call of the Lord of Highgarden, dispatching troops to support their newly anointed king. Soon, Zhu Zhen convened a pre-battle meeting with Mu Ying. The standing army of Highland Castle comprised a mere 300 men, with average combat capabilities. Moreover, over 100 had already been dispatched north to engage in battle. Lord Mullendal could muster a total of 3,000 troops at most, including a dozen vassal knights and a fresh conscription of farmers. Among them, over 2,000 are feeble militia. Not to mention armor, they may not even possess decent weaponry. Upon hearing Zhu Zhen's words, Mu Ying felt a buzzing in his head. Your Highness, the names of people in this world are exceedingly difficult to remember. So convoluted and lengthy, it leaves me utterly perplexed. Yet, how can a mere few hundred guards consider themselves a city's defense? It is laughable. So weak. Mu Ying could not help but scoff. After all, unlike the knightly system of medieval Europe in the Ming Dynasty, one could hardly call a place a city without a proper garrison. A few hundred defending a city? Indeed, that is far too weak in the Ming. Zhu Zhen chuckled, unfazed by such remarks, and incisively declared, Therefore, I intend to launch a swift strike on Highland Castle. As night descended upon Highland Castle, Viscount Martin was in conference with his eldest son, Mark. How infuriating. The little Rose has personally come to my Highland Castle to recruit forces. The Highgarden Rose, known as Marjorie Tyrell, is the daughter of the Highgarden Duke and the guardian of the Mace Tyrell, and she is also betrothed to Loras. What does Loras's claim to the throne have to do with us at Highland Castle? What support can we expect, and what benefits will we truly reap? The Tyrells are calculating indeed, using my Mullenwald warriors to curry favor with the king they have established. It is a losing proposition. To maximize their support for Loras, the Tyrell family is going all out this time. The Duke of Highgarden is well aware that many of his vassals are holding back, with several keeping their hands close to their chests. This is also a major reason for the Tyrell family's decline over the past century. They have gradually lost control over their vassals. Logically, they should possess strength surpassing that of the Lannisters, yet they struggle to consolidate it. In short, no one wishes to gamble their fortunes recklessly. All prefer to exert minimal effort and resources. However, the Tyrells aim for something grand. They are backing the future king, and their family aspires to stand as the most illustrious nobility in the Seven Kingdoms. To seek such bountiful rewards, substantial investments are essential. Indeed, this is a high-stakes gamble. Consequently, the Duke of Mace dispatched his children and knights across his lands to solicit greater stakes from his vassals. Except for his eldest son and heir, Velis Tyrell, who is a cripple, all his other children are actively seeking support. They strive to rally more forces from the Reach to assist Loras in claiming the Iron Throne. Among them is the beautiful daughter renowned throughout Highgarden and the Seven Kingdoms, Marjorie Tyrell, who arrived at Highland Castle yesterday. Although they had already sent over 100 to respond to the call for aid, the Tyrell family remains unsatisfied, demanding that they recruit 1,000 farmers to serve as militia. This is simply outrageous. They are not just draining the lifeblood of Highland Castle. They are stripping them to the bone. In response, Lord Martin was filled with indignation. The Tyrell family stands as a prominent lineage in the realm of Westeros, one of the paramount families among the Seven Kingdoms, governing the Reach and its seat, Highgarden. They also hold the title of Wardens of the South, thus reigning as the sovereigns of the entire Reach, a title bestowed upon Martin's liege lord. The Tyrells, vast and affluent, possess wealth second only to the Lannisters. Yet they can muster a more formidable military force. Moreover, should the Tyrells summon their vassal house Redwine and the fleets of the Arbor, along with the naval forces of other loyal houses along the coast, their maritime military strength would rival that of the royal fleet. For such a colossus, the inhabitants of Highgarden have little choice but to submit. Allegiance is their sole path to survival. This time, the Tyrells support Renly, urging the Reach to rally behind him. And as a vassal of House Tyrell, Martin undoubtedly contributed substantial manpower. Not only did he provide soldiers and supplies, but he also dispatched laborers from his domain to assist with logistical support. The burden of mobilizing for war across their territory is immense, akin to drawing blood for these lesser lords. The son, aware of the family's struggles, remarked to his father that the wall was not a much graver predicament. It was frigid and desolate, and it was said that the undead White Walkers roamed there. Mark chuckled at his father's dismay. Marjorie firmly asserted that those unwilling to contribute manpower and resources would face reckoning from the new king, Renly, once the war concluded. The very least they could expect was exile to the wall to serve as Night's Watchmen. Not only their family, but everything would face ruin. White Walkers, Lord Martin scoffed, dismissing it as mere tales for children. After millennia, who had truly seen a White Walker? As for the cold, it was summer now. The wall was not particularly frigid. Who could say when this summer would cease? Scholars from Old Town suggested perhaps next year. The seasons in Westeros differ vastly from those in the realm of Ming, often experiencing prolonged summers and winters. A summer could span several years, and the same held true for winter. While the father and son conversed, shadows flitted outside the walls of Highgarden in the darkness. Though the highest towers of Highgarden soared over 30 meters, the walls themselves generally stood only between 8 to 12 meters high. Aside from a few towers, none exceeded 15 meters, making ascent relatively manageable, particularly after the recent summons. The number of guards at Highgarden had dwindled sharply, leaving only a little over 100 sentinels, of which merely 20 were stationed upon the battlements. Suddenly, with a flash of white in the moonlight, a spray of crimson blossomed forth. The climber, Mu Ying, struck with a blade, severing a soldier's neck. Simultaneously, several other members of the King's Guard who ascended alongside him dispatched a few more guards. This commotion roused several drowsy sentinels of Highgarden nearby. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! However, all of this is utterly meaningless, for behind Mu Ying, 10 or even 100 feathered guards have quietly arrived, leaping forth like a pack of wolves among sheep. The soldiers guarding Highland City are simply no match for them. The soldiers of Highland City, let alone the expensive and rare plate armor that could be regarded as heirlooms by common nobles, are scarcely equipped even with chainmail. Most are devoid of armor or clad in rudimentary leather. Yet, do not underestimate leather armor. In Westeros, 100 leather armors could be worth several dozen golden dragons. This exorbitant cost is often beyond the means of typical minor nobles. Moreover, many of these lesser nobles do not possess plate armor themselves. As the pinnacle of defensive gear during the age of cold weapons in the West, plate armor is both challenging to manufacture and costly. A finely crafted suit can deplete a minor noble's entire fortune. Suddenly, the sound of Daming's fine steel blades slicing through leather armor pierces the night, and soon, the entire walls of Highland City are captured by the Ming army. Subsequently, the feathered guards open the city gates, and the remaining task is to flatten the stronghold. Hundreds of divine cavalry charge towards the gaping entrance. Faced with the onslaught of the elite cavalry from Daming, even the ragtag soldiers of Highland City, let alone the golden-armored infantry of Lannister, would have no choice but to kneel. In an instant, the air is filled with the cacophony of battle. The conflict swiftly reaches a decisive conclusion, with Zhu Zhen and Mu Ying accounting for the spoils within the Lord's unique tower. The first battle of the Ming army culminates in a resounding success at Highland City. The casualty ratio is astonishingly high, reaching an incredible 138. As for the captives, most are cast into the dungeons. Lord Martin is struck down by a hail of arrows atop the tower, while his eldest son Mark is taken prisoner. At this juncture, Zhu Zhen briefly surveys Highland City, marking the completion of his initial conquest task. Ding dong. The first phase of the mission is accomplished. Rewards: an adult frost dragon. From the world of Warcraft. Rewards: the dragon scale. From the world of divine weapons. Rewards: the celestial treasure mirror. From the world of the Emperor's legend. Meanwhile, Zhu Zhen also receives a notification from the system. Shall the rewards be claimed? Claim. Zhu Zhen, gazing upon these generous rewards, accepts them with delight. 007 Conquering the Highgarden begins with the conquest of the Rose of Highgarden. At this moment, atop the castle's tower where Zhu Zhen resides, a piercing cry rends the heavens, and a colossal frost dragon emerges. Its glimmering skeletal wings, resembling blades, sweep across the sky. Cold flames ignite within its pockmarked ribcage, spreading along its limbs and adding an eerie depth to its hollow eye sockets. Beholding the immense frost dragon before him, Zhu Zhen estimates it could swallow an adult bison whole. At last, he considers himself a dragon rider. Moreover, the frost dragon stands as the ultimate warrior of the undead, its breath manifesting as a chilling azure frost. With formidable offensive capabilities and an extensive attack range, it is nearly flawless, save for its rather sluggish movement speed. The presence of the frost dragon instills within me a renewed sense of confidence. Zhu Zhen, satisfied, commanded the frost dragon to remain perched atop the castle while he began to examine his other rewards. The divine beast from the divine weapon series? Zhu Zhen had a faint recollection of it. The divine farmer's ruler. This was indeed a remarkable treasure, an invaluable auxiliary artifact. It is well known that the divine farmer's ruler not only possesses the ability to save lives and resurrect the deceased, but also to take lives in the most imperceptible manner. Owing to its extraordinarily potent toxic capabilities, its venoms are renowned as unparalleled in the mortal realm. No one, apart from the divine farmer's ruler itself, can antidote such poisons. From this perspective alone, the divine farmer's ruler is undoubtedly a singular entity among divine weapons. Next, Zhu Zhen turned his attention to the third reward, 10 celestial crystals. These were the prized possessions for cultivating the Zhutian Baojian. Zhu Zhen felt a surge of excitement. This was no mere martial art. It was a path to transcendence. The Zhutian Baojian is the first martial discipline that does not rely on secret tomes, books, or illustrations. Practitioners must meditate while holding a celestial crystal, absorbing its inherent energy for cultivation. The celestial crystals also contain mental methodologies for practitioners to hone their martial skills. Each layer presents greater challenges, increasing in difficulty. However, the system has the capacity to accelerate Zhu Zhen's comprehension, thereby hastening his mastery of the Zhutian Baojian, effectively a cracked version of the Zhutian Baojian, allowing him to grasp the fundamentals with ease. The Zhutian Baojian is an endlessly profound martial art, with virtually no limits, where the first 5 layers correspond with the latter 5. First layer, white cloud smoke, yin and yang. Second layer, rose haze, fire and water. Third layer, earth, kunlun, heaven and earth. Fourth layer, azure snow, ice, life and death. Fifth layer, purple star river, reality and void. Sixth layer, dark chaos. Seventh layer, indigo, vast sea. Eighth layer, golden dawn. Ninth layer, blood, azure firmament. 10th layer, mysterious universe. Reaching the 9th layer, blood azure firmament, signifies the creation of life from a lifeless cosmos. The true divine blood azure firmament not only enhances existing life, but should also possess the ability to create life from that which is devoid of it, akin to the legendary N while molding clay to form humanity. It allows for the free transformation between the lifeless primordial energy of heaven and earth and one's own vital essence, ensuring an inexhaustible supply of energy and vitality. With an eternal lifespan, Zhu Zhen envisioned this realm as the true metamorphosis from mortal to divine, surpassing any notions of immortality. The 10th layer, mysterious universe, can be understood as the self-evolving cosmos, an endless cycle belonging to the realm of four-dimensional power, truly defying the heavens. After a brief contemplation of these insights, Zhu Zhen ceased his cultivation and stored away the celestial crystals, simultaneously reflecting on his current circumstances. The rewards bestowed by the system, viewed as a novice's gift package, were undeniably bountiful. However, I have only just embarked on the path of cultivating the Zhutian Baojian, and am still far from possessing the formidable power to confront thousands or even to annihilate the world single-handedly. At present, my greatest asset is the frost giant dragon. In the realm of a song of ice and fire, a dragon is akin to a nuclear weapon. Its presence bestows an intangible deterrent that ensures the stability and safety of my stronghold, the High Garden. Nevertheless, setting aside the dragon, I currently command only 3,000 elite troops. The ambition to seize King's Landing and rule the Seven Kingdoms remains a daunting challenge. What? Is the frost giant dragon synonymous with invincibility? It is unrealistic to assume that a single dragon could dominate an entire continent. Thus, the thought of directly capturing King's Landing seems somewhat rash. Moreover, even if I were to succeed in conquering it, could 3,000 men effectively govern such an expansive territory? Zhu Zhen does not believe that the nobility of the Seven Kingdoms would support a foreigner as their sovereign after I claim the Iron Throne. Unless I can inflict considerable pain upon the Seven Kingdoms, much like Aegon I, the Conqueror, did during the War of Conquest. Otherwise, the lords of the Seven Kingdoms would not accept me as their ruler. Therefore, I require greater support from the Ming Dynasty. Perhaps the current situation is favorable. I can leverage it. Zhu Zhen immediately thought of the War of the Five Kings that is currently raging across Westeros. They are far from united, each faction embroiled in conflict against the others. The Reach, particularly the area surrounding Highgarden, lies at the very periphery of this war. He must swiftly capture Highgarden. To achieve this, he needs a guide, someone intimately acquainted with the geography of the Reach. At this moment, he just happens to have such a talent at his disposal. The Rose of Highgarden, Marjorie. Within the chambers of the Lord of Highgarden, a striking figure adorned in fiery red sits in contemplation. Her eyes shimmer with the hues of a rich brown, and her red silk gown accentuates her graceful, slender form. Her soft, chestnut curls cascade over her smooth shoulders, enhancing her porcelain skin, which glistens like fresh snow. Coupled with her exquisite and alluring features, she possesses a unique charm that is unforgettable. She is indeed the Rose of Highgarden, Marjorie. At this moment, Marjorie wears an expression of hesitation. Initially sent by her father to expedite preparations for war, she now finds herself imprisoned by mysterious foreigners, reduced to a captive. These strangers are so enigmatic that their language is utterly incomprehensible to her. Yet, one thing Marjorie knows for certain is that they hail from a powerful realm. In terms of military prowess and weaponry, this kingdom surpasses her own house Tyrell. Consequently, Marjorie understands that, despite her father being the Lord of Highgarden and her betrothed being Loras, her escape is far from guaranteed. Creak. Just as Marjorie is lost in her thoughts, the door suddenly swings open. You are the Rose of Highgarden, Marjorie? Zhu Zhen entered, wielding a battle knife. Its sharp gleam instantly poised at Margaret's throat, the cold blade biting into her skin, threatening to slice through that delicate flesh and extinguish the fragrant essence of this exotic rose. Under normal circumstances, a typical heiress would have been paralyzed with fear, yet surprisingly, Margaret displayed an extraordinary resilience. Though her body trembled slightly, perhaps quaking with trepidation, she held Zhu Zhen's gaze with unwavering defiance, her eyes reflecting a spirit unbroken. Do you speak the tongue of the Undulls? She inquired boldly. The Undull language, revered by the ancestors of the Seven Kingdoms, was indeed a noble tongue. Surely, you must have mistaken me for another. I am but a traveler passing through the Vale, on my way to Dorne. If you would be so gracious as to spare me, I swear by the Seven that within a month, my husband will present you with untold treasures of gold and silver. Before Margaret could finish her plea, Zhu Zhen interrupted her, the tip of his knife silencing her words. Cease your pretense. Mark has divulged everything. I have no tolerance for deceitful women. As he gently traced the blade along her garments, he spoke in a hushed tone. Mark, I did not. You asked nothing, and I revealed nothing. How cunning you are, yet such fabrications are easily seen through by me. Although he had not interrogated Mark, he recognized Margaret well. Startled by Zhu Zhen's audacious gesture, Margaret's graceful form quivered. What do you truly desire? That is a matter for dawn's light, Zhu Zhen replied, a smirk playing upon his lips. For now, I seek to relish my spoils. In this world of treachery and blood, Zhu Zhen understood the necessity of adapting to local customs. After slaying his foes, the classic ritual followed. He referred to it as indulging in the night. He would not show mercy. In this realm, compassion was the most futile of sentiments. Strength reigned supreme. Might makes right. As he scrutinized Margaret intently, Zhu Zhen marveled inwardly at the unparalleled beauty of the realm's foremost lady, while simultaneously deriding her garb, reminiscent of a devout Islamic figure, seemingly designed to conceal her allure. Yet, despite the layers enveloping her, he found himself captivated by the pride that was barely contained within, as if she were poised to burst forth from the constraints that bound her. What truly piqued his interest, however, was her indomitable spirit, particularly reflected in her eyes, which bore the fierce glint of a wild stallion, untamed and unyielding. As Lu Sun once said, even the fiercest steed can be tamed with the right approach and persistent effort. Such is the nature of the wild horses in this world. 008 Assault on Old Town. The breath of death and ice. Women have always served as the finest lubricant for men. The following day, within the castle's grand hall, after a hearty breakfast, Zhu Zhen was engaged in discussion with Mu Ying. How did you find the exotic woman I arranged for you last night, General? Zhu Zhen inquired casually. Clearly, Mu Ying, as the commander of the three armies, had also enjoyed the company of a striking beauty, a maid from House Marjorie, hailing from a minor noble lineage. Such customs are not uncommon even within the ranks of the Ming army. After the ravages of war, moments of respite are essential. Following the brutalities of battle, the solace provided by a woman's embrace can gradually ease the tension within one's spirit. This, in turn, can enhance the morale of both soldiers and commanders. Was it not this very impulse that led Lan Yu to impulsively confront the Northern Yuan princess? Mu Ying chuckled at this notion, remarking, I found her quite delightful, truly unique. With a light-hearted jest concluded, Zhu Zhen shifted back to the matter at hand. He unfurled a somewhat indistinct map, procured from Martin's castle, which roughly delineated the topographical and strategic distribution of the River Bay area. It appears we must hasten our campaign, he stated, pointing to locations marked with strategic symbols on the map, Old Town and Dragonstone. Old Town is the most ancient city in Westeros, a veritable repository of human history, serving as both a museum and library of knowledge. Capturing this location would grant us immediate access to a wealth of detailed intelligence regarding the continent of Westeros. Knowing oneself and one's enemy ensures invincibility, making this information invaluable. Moreover, Old Town is a prosperous port, rich in resources. Conversely, Dragonstone presents the greatest obstacle to Zhu Zhen's advance toward acquiring Highgarden, boasting formidable military strength that ranks among the finest in the River Bay. To Zhu Zhen's knowledge, the Lord of Old Town, House Hightower, stands as one of the most powerful vassals of House Tyrell. Old Town is also a crucial port, a center of maritime and overland trade. Capturing this stronghold would undoubtedly cripple House Tyrell's influence. Zhu Zhen elaborated on his analysis. However, Dragonstone is equally vital to House Tyrell, with its Lord Lannister, being heralded as one of the mightiest military leaders in the realm. Zhu Zhen recalled that the Count of Dragonstone, Lord Lannister, is none other than his dear friend Sam Tarly, a triumphant figure in life, renowned for his military prowess. Having bested former King Robert Baratheon, and is regarded as one of Westeros' finest generals, wielding the ancestral Valyrian steel sword, Heartsbane. Presently, Zhu Zhen's conquest plan is focused on these two cities. If choosing to advance towards the Old Town, one must proceed westward a relatively short distance. Taking advantage of the slow dissemination of information, the news of Highland City's fall from the previous night has yet to be discerned by all the lords of Riverbend, allowing for a potential ambush on the Old Town. Conversely, should the decision be made to assault Corner Ridge, it would require traversing several mountains to the north. An arduous journey fraught with distance. By the time his forces arrive, the tidings of Highland City's defeat may have already spread throughout the Riverbend region, inevitably leading to a fierce battle. Although he harbors no fear of Corner Ridge's troops and is confident of ultimate victory, should the Tiller family prepare in advance and withdraw some of their legions northward, he could find himself facing a coalition of forces at Corner Ridge. Moreover, the looming threat of Highland City being stealthily attacked by the Old Town cannot be dismissed. While he is indifferent to Highland City and could abandon it at any moment, an alliance formed by the Old Town with the various lords of southern Riverbend could launch a surprise assault from behind, placing his army, which is already engaged in the siege of Corner Ridge and Highgarden, in a precarious position of being attacked from both flanks. Thus, it is prudent to prioritize the assault on the Old Town. Mu Ying, upon hearing this, remarked, "The military treatise states that to be besieged from both sides is akin to a cornered beast fighting for survival. It is better to fight with one's back against the water than to be attacked from all sides. My lord, let us set forth immediately to assault the Old Town." Despite having just endured a siege the previous day, attacking Highland City was hardly more than a light skirmish for the Imperial Army, and following a night of rest, the troops were invigorated and filled with zeal for the fight. Indeed, let us depart at once, seizing the momentum to conquer the Old Town as well. Your command is acknowledged. However, my lord, this offensive against the Old Town must be meticulously planned, Mu Ying cautioned, fully aware of the formidable strength of the Hightower family, far surpassing that of the dilapidated noble Martin of Highland City. As the foremost vassal of Highgarden, they maintain an army of over 5,000 soldiers, accompanied by numerous vassal knights, capable of rapidly assembling a force exceeding 10,000. Furthermore, the Hightower family is exceedingly affluent, ensuring their soldiers are well equipped with fine leather armor, chainmail, and an abundance of powerful weaponry, including giant crossbows. Nonetheless, in the eyes of Zhu Zhen, these considerations seemed trivial, for he possessed the ultimate weapon, the Frost Dragon. Before the wrath and frigid breath of the Frost Dragon, all walls and fortifications would be rendered futile. Even the Great Wall of Despair would not withstand such might. Rest assured, our campaign this time will be even more seamless than the siege of Highland City last night. With Zhu Zhen's assurance, Muing refrained from further inquiries. In his perspective, the sixth prince, chosen by the Gate of Wonders, possessed countless mysterious abilities akin to the colossal creature, the Frost Dragon, which he had not glimpsed the night before but had discovered hovering above the castle upon awakening. It is difficult for a mere mortal to fathom how, overnight, Zhu Zhen managed to tame a colossal dragon, a creature thought to exist solely within the realm of legends. My lord, what are your plans for this war? Dispatch 1,000 formidable iron cavalry at once. I seek a swift resolution. The remaining 2,000 men, the Yulin Guards, shall remain behind to secure Highland City, while the Tiansu Guards will march on foot to the Old Town, facilitating my command of the long-dormant Dragon Shadow 009 after the conquest. The journey from Highland City to the Old Town is a smooth and straightforward one. After a day of rapid marching, at the edge of the plains where a great river meets the vast ocean, a bustling port city comes into view. This is the most significant port in the Seven Kingdoms, and also the wealthiest city in all of Westeros, second in population only to the capital, King's Landing. It stands as a hub for maritime and overland trade, with vessels from all corners converging here, their routes extending across the Summer Isles, free trade city-states, and other distant lands across the narrow sea. The port is perpetually alive with the hustle and bustle of commerce, teeming with ships of all kinds. Yet, the city itself possesses a distinct charm, diverging from the medieval castles that are self-centered and surrounded by imposing walls. For centuries, the Old Town has enjoyed a life free from concern, having pledged allegiance to House Tyrell, thus eliminating terrestrial threats, leaving only those from the sea. Consequently, the walls that once served to repel the assaults of the Seven Kingdoms have crumbled into ruins, their broken remnants irreparable. Instead, walls lining the port and coastline stand as a bulwark against the Ironborn, the pirates of the sea. Within the city, a network of canals interspersed with cobblestone streets conjures a picturesque scene reminiscent of an idyllic Jiangnan water town, where tranquility reigns amidst the bustling market. Unlike King's Landing, a cesspool of political power, the Old Town exudes cleanliness and freshness. Its myriad streets and alleys intertwine like a labyrinth, ensnaring anyone who wanders within. The most magnificent and awe-inspiring structure in the Old Town is the towering spire, the highest artificial edifice in Westeros, soaring over 800 feet into the clouds. Its pinnacle serves as a beacon of hope for humanity, visible even from hundreds of miles away. To Zhu Zhen, this prosperous city appears to be a veritable paradise on earth. Yet, in the next moment, it is destined to be engulfed in the flames of conflict. For Zhu Zhen arrives with his army, and he cannot help but feel a pang of sorrow at the thought of such a human treasure being consumed by war. At this moment, he gazes into the distance, flanked by 1,000 resolute and fearsome iron cavalry, reminiscent of nomadic horsemen poised to invade medieval European towns. Moreover, Zhu Zhen can perceive the glint of greed in the eyes of the 1,000 elite soldiers behind him. In this affluent town, the prospect of seizing it would fulfill all their extravagant desires. This is a pack of men with a predatory nature, each imbued with a bloodthirsty instinct. From the moment of their birth, it was predetermined that they would live as wolves, for to become sheep was utterly impossible amidst the mountains of corpses. They are the personal soldiers of Zhu Yuanzhang, having followed him in vanquishing lords across the vast expanse of the land. Born into a cold-blooded and ruthless era, they have survived in a brutal environment where slaughter has become second nature. It is undoubtedly their desires that drive them to claw their way out of the heaps of the impoverished dead. To kill is to satiate hunger, to acquire wealth, to obtain women. Only by stepping upon the skulls of their enemies can they feel a sense of security around their own necks. Such primitive and base human instincts have forged the most elite unit of the Ming Dynasty. This is the essence of conventional warfare. Zhu Zhen, of course, does not hesitate to exploit this bloody nature to enhance his troops' combat efficacy. To compel men to serve you, they must be willing to do so of their own accord. Zhu Zhen deftly unsheathed his battle blade, facing the horizon where sea met sky at the break of dawn, and struck forward with great force. In a cold, commanding voice, he proclaimed, "Kill, roar, slay." Instantly, the frenzied cries reverberated through the heavens, mingling with the thunderous gallop of fierce steeds. A deep, resonant horn sounded once again across this bounteous land, echoing in the stillness of dawn, blending with the cacophony of war. The reverberating noise finally roused all within the old town, plunging it into utter chaos. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! The knights of the Heidel family hastily sounded the war horn as the iron cavalry of the divine military surged into the old town. Despite the relentless rout of frontline knights, crumbling beneath the iron hooves of the Ming cavalry, the rear continued to muster new waves of defense. By the heavens, it has been over a century since anyone dared to ambush the old town. Warriors, charge! Annihilate them! The master of the old town, the lord of the harbor, the earl of the tower, the guardian of the academic city, and the beacon of the southern lands, Leighton Heidel swiftly organized his family's elite to join the fray. Though he had surpassed 50 years of age, his vision remained sharp. This was a disgrace to the family, since he had assumed the mantle of Heidel's head. No one had ever been audacious enough to attack the old town. This place is now the jewel of the Seven Kingdoms, adorned with many honors and home to the academic city, the most civilized locale of the Seven Kingdoms. How dare these ruffians attempt to destroy him? Quickly, fearless lads, prepare for battle. At this moment, in the maritime fortress, Morintillier was beginning to organize his troops for the defense of the old town. Originally a naval force, their primary focus had been combating pirates at sea, belonging directly to the Tillier family. Morin, the commander of the defense corps, is also the uncle of Duke Mace, the lord of the High Court. Although his hair has turned completely white, he continues to lead his young comrades into battle. For safeguarding the old town is not merely an honor, but a profound responsibility. Should the capital of the Seven Kingdoms fall into the hands of unknown invaders, he shudders to contemplate the fate that would befall humanity across the realm. At that moment, the eastern part of the old town had devolved into a veritable slaughterhouse. Despite the soldiers of the Hightower family striving to halt the advance of the divine armored cavalry, the latter wielded an overwhelming firepower. Thousands of arrows rained down, piercing through countless corpses. The divine armored cavalry moved as a seamlessly coordinated war machine, executing commands with precision. After a deluge of arrows, they would charge forward, leaving only a field strewn with remnants of destruction. Following their charge, the divine armored cavalry would withdraw from the old town, avoiding the entrapment of urban warfare that could diminish their mobility and render them vulnerable to the horrors of close combat. Meanwhile, the Hightower family's guards, though bolstered by waves of reinforcements, were in disarray, lacking coordination and command. They were not the elite of the Hightower family. Their wooden shields soon became inadequate against the relentless barrage of arrows, plunging them into chaos. When the cavalry charged, panic ensued, with some even succumbing to sheer terror. Naturally, casualties were heavy. This turmoil persisted until the arrival of the old town's defense forces and the elite knights of the Tiller family, led by Count Leighton, who managed to stabilize the situation. Over 1,000 well-equipped knights from the Hightower and Tiller families, adorned even in luxurious plate armor, stood resolute like immovable mountains. To unsettle these knights, even the divine armored cavalry would need to exert tremendous effort. As 3 consecutive volleys of arrows were absorbed by these formidable shields, Count Leighton, mounted and flanked by dozens of guards, breathed a sigh of relief. Though he had never before encountered such elite cavalry, far superior to the Stark family's wolf riders from the north, his forces had the advantage of numbers. With renewed vigor, he bellowed, "Warriors, forward! Drive out these despicable invaders. Count Tabor stands with you in both advance and retreat." With Count Leighton's rallying cry invigorating their spirits, the Old Town Legion began to advance against the cavalry of Zhu Zhen, most wielding bludgeons to launch a formidable counterattack against the charging horsemen. Yet, a slight smile played upon Zhu Zhen's lips when suddenly, a thunderous explosion reverberated through the sky. Accompanied by this earth-shattering roar, a cascade of azure flames descended, striking directly at the slowly advancing knights of the old town, unleashing waves of immense blue energy. Count Leighton instantly felt a deafening buzz in his head before plummeting from his steed. Tumbling and bewildered, he was engulfed by a surge of unrelenting terror and cold that seemed to swell in his throat, rendering him speechless. A chilling sense of mortality suffused his entire being. Struggling to lift his head, Count Leighton beheld the colossal, azure-hued skull of a skeletal dragon, unleashing torrents of ethereal blue flames upon his cavalry. Accompanied by a terrifying breath of endless death and frost, the icy dragon of Zhu Zhen had just besieged the forces of Old Town. Its breath not only wrought catastrophic physical destruction, but also instilled a profound sense of dread and foreboding, reminiscent of the netherworld itself. Truly, it was a calamity of the undead, born from a land of graves, nearly scattering the souls of the valiant knights. This was nothing short of a dimensional assault. The courage and faith within them crumbled, their fervor for battle swiftly dissipating, their gazes filled with confusion and terror. Reason? What reason could they cling to? They had instantaneously lost all semblance of rational thought. The march towards Highgarden began, the prophecies of the citadel looming over them. In the wake of the army's collapse, only death awaited the lord of House Hightower. Zhu Zhen would not permit him to survive. The war for the conquest of Old Town had reached its conclusion. A day that the scholars would forever remember as the day of loss, for it was on this very day that the beacon of the Seven Kingdoms, Old Town, crumbled. The dragon, which had vanished from memory over a century ago, re-emerged in the skies above Old Town. Consequently, Zhu Zhen was even heralded as the reincarnation of the conqueror Aegon. After all, Aegon had once descended from a foreign land to Westeros, vanquishing the old ruling class and establishing a new order across the Seven Kingdoms. The day of loss in Old Town was merely the prologue to this conqueror's journey from afar. For Zhu Zhen, this was fortuitous, for he had acquired a title, one that would sustain his rule until he unified Westeros. Yet, from the perspective of the scholars and citizens of Old Town, the plundering of their wealth and the transference of knowledge on this day meant they had lost far more than anyone could fathom. A day had passed since the conclusion of the war. Zhu Zhen entered the citadel, where he meticulously gathered all information pertinent to his conquest of the continent. He issued orders to abandon Highgarden, rallying his forces at Old Town. Indeed, he intended to launch an assault on Highgarden at once, with a singular objective, to vanquish its lord. Thus, the vassals of House Tyrell and the Reach would be rendered utterly defenseless. Zhu Zhen successfully achieved his goal, annihilating House Hightower, ensuring that no adversaries remained in his wake as he marched northward. As for Old Town, he refrained from slaughter or arson, merely relocating the city's abundant riches into the coffers of the royal guard. To the mortal soldiers, these treasures of gold and jewels were undoubtedly the finest rewards. Aware of his insufficient numbers, now dwindled to fewer than 3,000, he integrated the remnants of the defeated army into a vanguard legion. Beneath the terrifying shadow of the ice dragon, the knights and guards remained ensnared in lingering fear. Zhu Zhen promised them that as long as they fought for their own cause, they would be entitled to share in all future spoils, just as the elite troops of the great Ming behind him. This undoubtedly ignited the ambitions simmering within these disgraced knights and guards. Zhu Zhen could also offer them wealth and women. Despite their current life under the banner of the Heidel family in the prosperous Old Town, wealth and women had always belonged to the nobility. For knights like them, who had not even been granted titles, fortune favored those who earned the admiration of noble lords, granting them servants, lands, and riches to establish families. Conversely, those less fortunate were left to sell their lives for a meager existence, becoming frequent patrons of brothels. Thus, the army found a measure of stability, at least with a common goal in sight. After approximately 2 weeks of consolidation in the Old Town, Zhu Zhen began his march northward. To his knowledge, the War of the Five Kings had commenced, and the elite forces of the Highgarden Duke were still maneuvering around King's Landing. This was indeed a prime opportunity for him to seize Highgarden. Concurrently, as Zhu Zhen led his troops north, the vast structures of the academy, untouched by Zhu Zhen's wrath, still stood by the banks of the Honeywine River. Although their fervent protector and lord, the Heidel family, had been obliterated by Zhu Zhen, he refrained from destroying the academy, considering future plans and the eventual dominion over the continent of Westeros. At this moment, the aged scholar Uther gazed sorrowfully into the distance, watching the grand coalition of the great Ming advance northward. May the gods protect us. This band of killers has finally departed. His student Norgai inquired, noticing his mentor's despondency. Ever since witnessing the frost dragon in the conflict at the Old Town, Uther had been in a state of disquietude. Trembling lips parted as he murmured, "After the long summer, the stars weep blood. The cold darkness shall envelop the world." This was an ancient fable, said to have been passed down for thousands of years. The summer had been excessively lengthy and was nearing its end. The long silent shadow of dragons returned, shrouded in death and fear, heralding the coming of winter. Darkness may soon engulf us, and we shall bear witness. Norgai was taken aback by his teacher's words, realizing that Uther was suggesting Zhu Zhen embodied the prophecy of cold and darkness. Yet, the thought of the frost dragon instilled a fear colder than death, causing him to swallow hard. A week later, in Highgarden, Duke Mestis Tyrell was in a furious tirade against his eldest son, Velis. Just 2 weeks prior, he had received the news of the fall of the Holdfast and the disappearance of his daughter, and now he was met with the news of the old town's downfall. Despicable foreign scoundrels. How utterly vile. To the Duke, this was merely the work of Dornish pirates or raiders from the summer sea seizing his backyard amidst the chaos. As for the rumored undead skeletal dragons and fearsome calamities, Duke Mestis dismissed such tales entirely, not believing a word of it. His ancestors had witnessed the majestic presence of living dragons, yet they had never laid eyes upon a bone dragon crafted from mere remnants. Coupled with the ominous whispers of death and fear, which had transformed into myth, the Duke of Maze was rendered increasingly skeptical. Were it not for the ambition to secure the throne for Renly, he would have relished the opportunity to personally lead an army to Old Town, capture these invaders, and deliver a sound thrashing. It was evident that the Duke's sole focus was the throne, having summoned the audacity for this grand gamble. He must support it to the very end. Regardless of who ultimately ascended to kingship, he had to stand by the king's side. For the glory of welcoming a new sovereign would yield greater benefits for his family. That was where his true battleground lay. He could not afford to lose, lest his family be utterly dismantled. Father, should we not consider slightly reducing supplies to the front to reclaim the limping Velis? Attempted to persuade the Duke. As the saying goes, one must secure the home front before addressing external threats. With their own backyard ablaze, how could they ignore it? No need for further discussion. The Duke replied, filled with ire. At this moment, the situation at the front was exceptionally favorable. Not long ago, the king in the north, Robb Stark, this youthful wolf lord barely 15 years of age, exhibited near-miraculous military prowess, achieving victory after victory against the seasoned lion, Tywin Lannister, even capturing Tywin's most cherished heir, Jaime Lannister. Furthermore, the king in the north was willing to collaborate with Renly to assault King's Landing. The farcical jester king, Joffrey, had little time left to prance about. In the Duke's eyes, the War of the Five Kings was drawing to a close. Joffrey was destined to meet his demise. Once the Stark family forged an alliance, should Renly's faction ultimately triumph, the king in the north would have no choice but to acknowledge the legitimacy of the Iron Throne, perhaps granting them additional favors. As for Stannis and the so-called king beyond the wall, they were but laughable jesters, easily vanquished. The Duke's excitement swelled. Regarding Margaery, betrothed to Renly as queen, even if she had temporarily vanished, it could be concealed for the time being. After all, Renly held great trust in him, and even more in his lover, Loras Tyrell. However, he needed to find her swiftly. Otherwise, should Renly secure the throne only to discover his queen was missing, their family's aspirations for greatness would be jeopardized. Especially since he had but one daughter. He envisioned the next king calling him grandfather. Someone, immediately seek out Margaery's whereabouts. Her safety must be ensured. Soon enough, the Tyrell family would regain its former magnificence. He was unaware that 3 weeks prior, Zhu Zhen had already led over 5,000 elite troops, traversing the Crimson Mountains. En route to Highgarden, the only obstacle along the way was the Blue Tower of Horn Hill. At this moment, Zhu Zhen's army marched steadily along the Crimson Mountains. In the remote wilderness, where human presence is scarce, the ability to conceal one's tracks is paramount. Consequently, Duke Mace has yet to discover the figure advancing northward. Serving as his guide through this military campaign is none other than Margaery. At this moment, Margaery finds herself in a state of inner turmoil. She is a clever woman, even a natural enchantress, adept at satisfying and pleasing men. Yet, she is leading her lover to wage war against her own father. According to the customs of Westeros, she is already considered a wife, despite not being formally wed. Strikingly, her first man has turned out to be Tommen. It must be said that Tommen provided her with an unprecedented experience that nearly cost her life. At that time, Tommen was also taken aback. He held ambitions akin to those of Chancellor Chow, inspired by the legacy of Wei Wu, preparing to become a usurper himself. After all, he believed that in the realm of noble intrigues, virginity was a mere myth. What? Doubt it. Just ask Cersei and Jaime. Those two siblings might not have even completed their coming-of-age rites before they took flight together. After all, it is a song of blood and battle. To his surprise, there indeed existed an original. However, for Tommen, Margaery remains merely a trophy. This is a path paved with iron and blood. Tommen unabashedly reached out, pinching the alluring curves of Margaery, who sat upon the same steed, and inquired, "At our current pace, how long until we reach the arbor?" Margaery bit her lip and softly replied, "A few days." She then asked, "By the way, how many men do you have? Is it enough to assault Highgarden?" "Only 3,000, Tommen replied nonchalantly. although he had recently recruited an additional 2,000 knights and guards to form a secondary legion. He regarded these men as nothing more than mercenaries, not part of the true forces of House Baratheon. Marjorie immediately exclaimed, 3,000? Good heavens! You think 3,000 can defeat my father? That is utterly audacious. Even if you possessed a dragon, even if your army were extraordinarily brave and skilled in battle, it would be impossible. Marjorie was unaware of the true power of dragons. She merely understood that the legendary beasts were said to be capable of facing thousands alone. Yet even so, to believe that one dragon and 3,000 soldiers could conquer the entirety of the Reach? Such arrogance. It was indeed too presumptuous. However, Tommen remained unfazed. He caressed Marjorie's chestnut locks and commanded, lead me without hesitation. Starting tonight, we shall quicken our pace. Upon hearing this, Marjorie instinctively retorted, slow down, slow down. But I wish to reach Highgarden swiftly. Nonetheless, Tommen was perplexed by the blush that adorned her cheeks. Had she perhaps misinterpreted his words? The time passed swiftly, and the situation in King's Landing grew increasingly dire. In the north, the young Wolf Lord, accompanied by the formidable army of House Tully from Riverrun, converged with the Count of Harrenhal, Lucius Bolton. They crossed the Trident River with great momentum, advancing directly towards King's Landing. Meanwhile, the Lannister forces, led by Tywin, retreated to a northern fortress, Harrenhal, choosing to bide their time and plot their next schemes. In the eyes of Duke Mace, this was indeed fortuitous. The more beleaguered the Lannisters became under Tywin's command, the more jubilant House Tyrell felt. Duke Mace boldly proclaimed, now, the lions have been cornered by the ravenous wolves in their dilapidated lair at Harrenhal, unable to advance or retreat. If our House Tyrell seizes this opportunity to attack King's Landing from the south, the Iron Throne shall be ours. The coronation of Loras is but a matter of time. To this end, Duke Mace took his robust second son, Garland Tyrell, and personally led the troops to the front lines. He also brought along his trusted vassal, the Earl of Brightwater Keep, Lord Lyle Tarley, to lend his prowess in the siege of King's Landing. Back in Highgarden, Duke Mace left behind his lame eldest son, Willis Tyrell, along with his mother, the renowned Queen of Thorns, Lady Olenna Redwine, to safeguard their stronghold. Indeed, Lady Olenna's reputation eclipsed even that of her own lord, commanding the respect of all. Entrusting the stronghold to Olenna, Duke Mace felt entirely at ease. However, little did he anticipate that shortly after his departure, an unwelcome visitor would arrive in the southern part of Highgarden. A remarkably swift conflict had already ignited. In Brightwater Keep, the mournful tones of a distant horn echoed as three figures traversed the serpentine corridors, entering the hall. Their emblazoned sigils did not bear the golden rose, but rather depicted a swift-footed hunter drawing a bow. Leading them was the second son of Lord Lyle Tarley, Dyken Tarley. Like his portly brother Sam, he possessed dark hair and gray eyes, his stature tall and imposing, yet not overweight, instead emanating strength. A few months prior, his elder brother Samwell Tarley had been coerced by Lyle Tarley to the forbidding wall, thus establishing Dyken as the rightful heir of Brightwater Keep. At that moment, Dyken was in a state of frantic urgency, an arrow lodged in his shoulder guard. Mother, he shouted to the woman within the chamber, flee. Escape to Highgarden. Inside, Lady Melissa Tarley peered out in alarm. What is it? Are we not merely beset by some brigands? Upon hearing the sounds of conflict outside, she had assumed it was merely another band of thoughtless raiders, or perhaps natives from the Red Mountains come to pillage, as such incidents had occurred in the past. For over a decade, Lord Lyle had ruthlessly suppressed any who dared to challenge his authority, and Brightwater Keep had enjoyed a long period of peace. At present, the Lord of Jiao Ling has led his troops away, leaving the entire stronghold in a state of utmost vulnerability, where even the most audacious dare to trespass. However, Lady Melissa, deducing from the wounds of her son, Dyken Tarley, surmises that the adversaries arriving are not ordinary foes. Could it be that the city gates have been breached? Dyken Tarley swallowed hard, offering no response to his mother, instead gesturing for his two cousins behind him to prepare the horses, urging his mother to depart swiftly and send word. There was no time for explanations. Mother, quickly, get in the carriage. Meanwhile, Dyken Tarley, accompanied by several guards, advanced towards the gaping breach in the city wall, where fierce combat raged. There, at the formidable wall, he witnessed a colossal dragon unleashing a terrifying azure flame that consumed the fortifications. As the flames dissipated, thousands of cavalry surged through the opening, overwhelming the Tarley family's guards, who were utterly powerless to resist. Soon, the entire city of Jiao Ling was succumbing to invasion. Meanwhile, Randall Tarley had taken the elite 5,000 troops, along with a multitude of guards and farmers. Daikantali had barely over 1,000 soldiers at his disposal. In less urgent circumstances, he could have rallied thousands of militia from the surrounding areas to assist in the defense. However, to Zhu Zhen, such a meager force was inconsequential. The icy breath of the frost dragon was sufficient to decimate the 1,000-strong contingent, and as the divine cavalry charged, the breach was completely widened. Subsequently, the legion recruited from the old town initiated their assault, entering the heart of the city and engaging the enemy in brutal combat. Although this legion was hastily armed by Zhu Zhen, they were equipped with the finest armaments of the Hightower family, endowing them with formidable combat prowess. In merely 2 hours, Jiaoling fell under Zhu Zhen's control. Even as he was captured, Daikantali could not comprehend the origins of such a powerful force. At that moment, he found himself pinned to the ground by 2 knights from the old town, unable to move, and he could only gaze upward at the commanding presence of Zhu Zhen. Beside Zhu Zhen, he recognized the long-missing Marjorie Hightower, who had vanished for nearly 2 months. It seems your father indeed accompanied the Tyrell family to Highgarden to meet Stannis. Zhu Zhen remarked with a slight smile. One must admit, his fortune was indeed remarkable. He had initially prepared to engage in a fierce battle with the legendary Randall Tally, a confrontation that would surely demand considerable effort and exact a heavy toll to prevail. However, upon seizing Jiaoling, he discovered the city's defenses were pitifully weak, crumbling before the dragon and the army of the great Ming. Randall Tally had fortuitously departed with his elite forces not long ago. It appeared that Highgarden too had been stripped of a significant portion of its defenses, making the conquest of Highgarden seem almost effortless. Such was the luck of a true emperor. Indeed, it seems that handsome men are often favored by fortune. He waved his hand, signaling to imprison Dictari. Unlike the Hightower family, the circumstances have greatly improved for the Tarly family, who can now fully exploit the situation. Once he secures Highgarden, it would be immensely beneficial to garner the support of these noble families. After all, in the short term, his manpower is limited, and to bolster his forces, he must rely on the backing of these aristocratic lords. Should Lannister Tarly prove unwilling, then his sole heir would serve as a valuable bargaining chip, a hostage. News of the fall of Hornhill swiftly reached Highgarden. With the escape of Lady Melissa, Queen Thorne convened an urgent meeting with her grandson. In that moment, Velis distinctly perceived fear etched upon the face of his grandmother, Queen Thorne, the woman who had always been a master of calculations, perpetually confident and fiercely competitive, was now secretly gripped by dread. Grandmother, Velis attempted to offer solace, but Queen Thorne managed a faint smile, uttering with difficulty, "I trust you have heard. The rumors are indeed true. The foreigner, claimed to be the reincarnation of Conqueror Aegon, possesses a terrifying undead dragon. Furthermore, he has led his army to seize Hornhill. They may reach Highgarden by tonight." At this, Queen Thorne's body slackened, a palpable weariness enveloping her. "Grandmother, given the current situation, we have fewer than 2,000 defenders within the city, nearly half of whom are militiamen hastily gathered from the fields." Velis wiped his brow. Acutely aware of the vast disparity in strength, it was inconceivable that they could hold Highgarden. "Indeed, I never imagined our Targaryen family would face such a day." Queen Thorne gazed out at the dimming sunset, resembling a wilting golden rose. "Highgarden is within reach. The illustrious dragon riders of the dawn. The sun has set. It won't be long before they come knocking. We should surrender the city." "What?" Velis could hardly fathom that the suggestion to surrender would emerge from his grandmother's lips. Queen Thorne, however, regarded him earnestly, declaring, "Child, at my age, my only strength lies in my calculations. If this foreigner can indeed replicate the feats of Conqueror Aegon, reunifying the 7 kingdoms and establishing a new Iron Throne, our Targaryen family would also be among the founding heroes. Yet if he is, as the tales suggest, a harbinger of doom and death, then my demise would be but a small price to pay. I shall wager my life on this." Queen Thorne, a master of the game of power, quickly assessed their dire predicament and resolved with remarkable swiftness. "However, you must leave at once. Should I fail, seek your father. If I succeed, return. But remember to write to your father before you return, urging him to bring the Targaryen forces to join Lord Blue. And do not rush back. Perhaps Lannister could triumph over this foreign conqueror." Upon hearing this, Velis's eyes brightened as he comprehended his grandmother's intentions. It was a multifaceted wager. In such a scenario, regardless of the final outcome, whether it be Lannister or Zhu Zhen's victory, the Targaryen lineage would endure. Velis grasped this notion, and before his departure, the Queen of Thorns imparted a vivid lesson drawn from her own experiences to her eldest grandson. "Child, always remember, the continuation of the family supersedes individual safety. This is what we call sacrificing the pawn to protect the king. If necessary, you and your father may abandon this old frame of mind, and at that juncture, the Targaryen family will rely on you to maintain order. However, the queen's astute calculations overlooked a critical concern, or perhaps she was simply unaware of one significant fact. That is, what if? Of course, I mean if Lannister were to suddenly perish. Naturally, he could never fathom that Lannister might meet an untimely end. That fateful night, the Queen of Thorns tossed and turned, unable to find rest, ever vigilant, awaiting news of Zhu Zhen's assault from the direction of the Castle of the Horns. Yet, unbeknownst to her, the very conqueror that troubled her sleep was presently embracing her granddaughter, Marjorie. The following day, an unexpected scene unfolded upon Zhu Zhen's arrival. The Queen of Thorns shockingly surrendered, as Zhu Zhen's iron hooves shattered the tranquility of the marble fortress of Highgarden. The Queen of Thorns led the entire populace to bow before the conqueror, offering the most respectful homage. Thus, Highgarden fell into his hands without a single soldier raised in resistance, leaving Zhu Zhen somewhat taken aback. In the evening, within the grand banquet hall of Highgarden, the fading light of the setting sun cast a dim glow. That night, the Queen of Thorns hosted a sumptuous feast in honor of Highgarden's new master. Thousands of fragrant candles illuminated the hall as if it were daylight, while the floor was adorned with thick woolen carpets, inviting one to tread upon them as if walking on clouds. In the spacious center of the hall stood long wooden tables, uniformly draped in dark blue fabric, adorned with fresh roses of various hues. A subtle fragrance wafted through the air, uplifting the spirits. The Queen of Thorns graciously guided Zhu Zhen to a seat at the table and poured him a glass of golden wine from Qingting Island. Marjorie stood attentively by, serving Zhu Zhen like the most devoted maid. This Western-style noble etiquette left Zhu Zhen feeling somewhat uneasy. Henceforth, his celebratory banquets would indeed need to align more closely with the customs of the Ming Empire. The great conqueror, the reincarnation of Yang, Lord Zhu Zhen of Highgarden. The Targaryen family extends to you the most devout loyalty. May the seven gods be with you, the Queen of Thorns declared as she poured Zhu Zhen a drink. However, Zhu Zhen did not immediately partake. What troubles you? The Queen of Thorns inquired with a smile, sensing Zhu Zhen's unusual demeanor. It is nothing much, merely a recollection of certain events. This cup of wine naturally reminded Zhu Zhen of King Joffrey, specifically the manner of his demise. The poison within that chalice was crafted by the hands of the Thorn Queen. Fortunately, Zhu Zhen possessed the divine Shinong ruler. A trifling poison posed no threat. Cheers. Upon consuming the wine, Zhu Zhen could distinctly sense that it was harmless. A man of his stature, burdened with countless responsibilities, inevitably faced his share of worries. Seeing Zhu Zhen down the drink, the Thorn Queen realized that negotiations for new matters could commence. With a hint of guilt, she smiled and feigned a casual demeanor, saying, "Well, I have another matter that requires your esteemed attention." As she spoke, the Thorn Queen candidly laid out her ambitions to secure a place for House Tyrell within Zhu Zhen's camp. Oh, a title of nobility? Indeed. There are titles within the great Ming Empire. Upon hearing the Thorn Queen express her desire for him to bestow a noble title upon her, Zhu Zhen's eyes brightened. This was precisely what he had hoped for, as integrating House Tyrell into the nobility of the great Ming Empire would benefit his endeavors at the court immensely, with no detriment whatsoever. Meanwhile, the Thorn Queen's desire to retain the status of House Tyrell signified a mutual benefit. In due time, House Tyrell would still need to contribute their resources and efforts. Naturally, Zhu Zhen, well aware of the Thorn Queen's notoriously shrewd character, could not afford to be entirely naive. After all, he had no intention of being as reckless as Joffrey, whose mind was filled with folly. He proclaimed, "In the great Ming Empire, there are only 3 ranks of nobility: Duke, Marquis, and Earl. According to the laws of the great Ming Empire, I can grant House Tyrell the title of Earl, while allowing them to retain their original fief in the Reach, provided they pledge their loyalty to me and to the great Ming Empire. Isn't that merely the lowest rank of nobility?" Upon hearing that only the title of Earl could be conferred, the Thorn Queen expressed some dissatisfaction. However, when she realized that they could maintain their existing status and that the lands of the Reach would still belong to their family, she found solace. The Thorn Queen readily acquiesced, stating, "I am willing to have House Tyrell pledge loyalty to the great Ming Empire, to you, my lord. Perhaps this great Ming Empire, which stands before us, is far more expansive than our 7 kingdoms. And you, my lord, are merely a vanguard of this empire." Soon, the banquet came to an end, and Zhu Zhen strolled into the Highgarden garden, savoring the moment to sober up. After regaining his clarity, he took out the celestial crystal, preparing to delve into the profound insights of the celestial treasure. Upon reflection, Zhu Zhen was astonished at how swiftly Highgarden had come under his grasp. Within less than 3 months of arriving in Westeros, he had completed the second phase of his mission. Ding! The second phase of the mission has been completed. Rewards: 1 adult red female dragon, 1 adult black male dragon, and 1 adult gold male dragon from the realm of Game of Thrones. Rewards: 10 pieces of exquisite primordial spirit stones, and the sword Immortal Puppet Lawn Foam from the world of Star Transformation. Rewards: the incense jade tome from the world of Zhutian. Meanwhile, Zhu Zhen also received a notification from the system. Should he claim the reward? Without the slightest hesitation, he chose to claim it, as he felt the essence of the fragrant jade tome gradually imbuing his mind. Zhu Zhen experienced a sensation akin to having personally undergone the refinement process. Engaging in further cultivation felt as natural as water to fish. This particular cultivation technique is divided into 3 significant realms: Shaoyang, Jiang, and Yuyang. Only upon reaching the Yuyang realm can one effortlessly unleash the Fiery Sun spells, which encompass the 8 Desolation Mystic Fire Formation, capable of summoning the 8 Desolation Fire Dragons to incinerate all things. Before long, he had advanced to the Shaoyang realm. Curiously, he was simultaneously cultivating both the Hunyuan Treasure Mirror and the fragrant Jade Tome, which hailed from disparate worlds, yet his body exhibited no signs of discomfort, seamlessly accommodating multiple cultivation systems. Could it be that he possessed extraordinary talent? Dismissing further contemplation, Zhu Zhen marveled silently at the exquisite, radiant primordial spirit stones in his hand, struck by the sheer purity and vastness of the power they contained. Primordial spirit stones are not to be confused with ordinary spirit stones. Such treasures are exceedingly rare in the mortal realm. While some formidable rogue cultivators might possess them, they usually only have lower or mid-grade stones, with high-grade ones being a rare sight. As for the exquisite primordial spirit stone, there exists but one in the core vein of Pengma Island within the tumultuous Star Sea. Only within the higher realms of celestial, demonic, and monstrous worlds can one find substantial reserves of such stones, as cultivators below the great achievement stage are unable to absorb the overly pure energies of heaven and earth. For Zhu Zhen at present, these stones, while less practical than spirit stones that can be directly absorbed to enhance strength, would prove formidable when paired with the sword Immortal Lawn Foam. The sword Immortal Lawn Foam is a powerful puppet wielding the might of a golden immortal within the Star Transformation world. However, the cost to activate it is exorbitantly high, requiring exquisite primordial spirit stones as a power source, making it akin to a gold-devouring beast. Nonetheless, 10 exquisite primordial spirit stones would suffice to enable it to act several times, serving as an excellent trump card. This indeed felt like a stroke of incredible fortune in the form of a reward. The Red Dragon, Black Dragon, and Gold Dragon are native colossal dragons of the Game of Thrones universe. While there are instances of mortals successfully slaying dragons, these creatures represent a qualitative leap in destructive capability for any ordinary person. The reward for the first phase is a single dragon, while the second phase rewards 3 dragons. Zhu Zhen found himself eagerly anticipating what might come next. Although he believed a frost dragon would surpass these 3 in power, the frost dragon remains an entity beyond mortal control. In contrast, the trio of dragons differs significantly. The reason why the House of the Dragon is renowned is due to their mastery of dragon taming rather than any inherent divine strength. The so-called notion of bloodlines is merely a result of generations of domestication, along with the family's inherited techniques for taming dragons. If other families were to acquire such methods, they too could undoubtedly cultivate dragon riders. Ultimately, before the rise of Valyria, it was once a destitute nomadic tribe, subjected to humiliation. Yet, the 3 dragons in their possession are inherently obedient to the Great Ming Empire, which implies that anyone from the Great Ming can become a dragon rider. A wildly ambitious idea soon blossomed in Zhu Zhen's mind. If I could utilize the dragons bestowed upon me by the system to breed more dragons, and subsequently select suitable dragon riders from the Great Ming, how splendid it would be to form a legion of dragons. The preparations of Zhu Yuanzhang have astonished the entire realm. It has been some time since the high seat changed hands. Presently, in the garden where golden roses bloom, a vast expanse of grass sprawls before us. 3 dragons, each measuring over 10 meters, lie obediently on the ground, while Zhu Zhen and his companions stand before them. At this moment, a football coach is imparting skills to the inaugural dragon riders of the Great Ming Empire. Behind them, Muing watches with a twinge of envy. Indeed, his name is absent among the 3 dragon riders, who are all fiercely loyal individuals chosen by Zhu Zhen from his 300 personal guards. Zhu Zhen's personal guard comprises 300 men, with 100 drawn from each of the 3 elite armies. No longer in the dire straits of his past, Zhu Zhen has amassed over 1,500 soldiers through his consolidation of forces in Corner Ridge and the High Seat, all readily available, supplemented by the previous legion from Old Town, bringing his total to over 3,000. In the past fortnight, with the unwavering assistance of the Thorn Queen, he has trained 1,000-strong infantry corps, all recruited from the High Seat's farmers. Unlike the barren lands of the north, the fertile Riverbend region boasts a commendable population density, allowing for a steady influx of recruits. Currently, aside from the elite forces of the Great Ming, Zhu Zhen effectively commands close to 5,000 troops. He has divided these 5,000 into 3 legions: the Old Town Legion, the High Seat Legion, and the Corner Ridge Legion. The deliberate use of geographical names, devoid of any noble family titles, serves to enhance the purity of these legions. In fact, members of House Tully are rarely seen within the High Seat Legion. Although these 3 legions exhibit a degree of loyalty, they remain not entirely reliable. Thus, Zhu Zhen requires a source of intimidation. Naturally, that would be the dragons. This is also the rationale behind his decision not to appoint Mu Ying as a dragon rider, as he needs him to lead the elite forces in battle, the true backbone of the great Ming Empire in Westeros. Each dragon rider will command 1 legion, ensuring that they can operate independently without causing Zhu Zhen undue concern, such as inadvertently being ambushed by their own allies. The training has progressed remarkably well. After 2.5 weeks, the dragon riders have developed a harmonious partnership with their dragons. Among them, the rider of the Golden Dragon, named Shinqiu, is one of Zhu Zhen's earliest guards. During the Blitz of Highland City, he scaled the walls alongside Zhu Zhen. The rider of the Red Dragon, Su Wan, is a cousin of Su De and also serves as the commander of the Feathered Guard, possessing the ability to lead an army. The Black Dragon's rider is Zhuan, a distant relative of Zhu Yuanzhang, who, due to his lineage, can only serve as a centurion in the Imperial Guard. Observing the 3 majestic dragons, Mu Ying felt an overwhelming sense of envy. He had ridden horses and even camels, but never a dragon. Sensing the complex expression of the newly appointed Grand Marshal of the Imperial Expeditionary Force behind him, Zhu Zhen smiled broadly. "No need to look so wistful, General Mu Ying. If you truly wish to ride a dragon, I happen to have a frost giant dragon available." At this, Mu Ying's expression twitched. What a joke. A frost giant dragon? I do not wish to shorten my lifespan. I want to live a few more years. The mere thought of that terrifying creature reminded him of the Battle of Old Town, where the frost not only instilled fear in the enemies, but also terrified his own men. Not everyone possesses the courage to face death head-on. Not interested? Zhu Zhen teased. Mu Ying, flustered, replied, "It's not that I'm uninterested. I simply do not dare." Zhu Zhen continued, "General Mu Ying, you are now the new Grand Marshal of the Imperial Expeditionary Force, commanding nearly 10,000 men. You must recognize that each of these dragon riders must guard their respective legions. Rest assured, the Ming Dynasty will not forget your contributions. Before long, I will certainly arrange for you to have a dragon of your own." Upon hearing this, Mu Ying's expression turned peculiar, as he began to suspect that His Highness, Prince Chu, was playing with him. Meanwhile, Marguerite, dressed in a Gothic maid outfit, found the scene before her utterly astonishing. She gazed at Zhu Zhen with a complex expression, initially believing he possessed only 1 dragon, only to discover he had 4. No, 5. There was another one lurking below. The thought of that dragon made her heart race, and she suddenly shook her head. What a revelation. It is well known that the conqueror Aegon seized the world with the aid of dragons. Now, in an age when the dragon house has no dragons, this man continually showcases dragons, more and more. Perhaps he truly is the reincarnation of Conqueror Aegon. Similarly, in King's Landing, the hand of the king, the prime minister, the imp Tyrion Lannister, spoke slowly. At that moment, he was discussing significant matters with his sister, Queen Cersei, and his nephew, King Joffrey. Following the demise of the dragon house established by Conqueror Aegon, he arrived with dragons from foreign lands to conquer the 7 kingdoms. Westeros is destined to be ruled by the Dragon King. Such tales circulate among the folk, and now many believe them. The news has spread throughout the streets of King's Landing, igniting fervor among its inhabitants. It seems that their Dragon King is poised to return, heralding the resurgence of House Targaryen, which has dominated Westeros for centuries. A new war of conquest is on the horizon. Tyrion shrugged and raised a goblet, exclaiming, "Impossible. Even if he possesses dragons, he shall never usurp my throne. I am destined by fate, born to become the king of the 7 kingdoms. Kingsguard, where are the Kingsguard? Issue a royal decree at once. Anyone who dares to utter such nonsense shall be dragged out and beheaded. Eliminate them all." Upon hearing this, Joffrey erupted like a rabid dog, shouting and bellowing. "Calm yourself, my king," Tyrion interjected. "If you truly believe you are destined for the throne, you must demonstrate it through action rather than through roaring in an attempt to silence dissent." Tyrion Lannister felt an overwhelming sense of exasperation towards his mad dog of a nephew. He had long since had his fill. "Very well, if that is the case. Do you possess any clever strategies, my dear brother? You are the hand of the king. Do not disappoint the expectations of the king and our father." Beside them, the poised and graceful Cersei Lannister inquired. "Rely on him? A dwarf, a cripple? How utterly ludicrous." Joffrey scoffed. "And what of House Tyrell? Their lands have been seized. Have they not taken action? They are a worthless lot." True to his reputation, Joffrey was relentless, attacking all who crossed his path like a rabid beast. Yet, despite being bitten by this mad dog, Tyrion remained unperturbed. He did not respond directly, but took another sip of wine, narrowing his eyes to gaze out the window. After a moment, he slowly remarked, "Renly is dead." Recently, Stannis and Renly met at their family stronghold, Storm's End, to discuss cooperation versus conflict. Ultimately, Stannis, with the aid of the Red Priestess's sorcery, assassinated his younger brother, Renly. Consequently, Renly's forces are now leaderless, most having been absorbed by Stannis. The Tyrells are likely preoccupied, confronting Stannis. It is said that Loras Tyrell has seized all the supplies from Renly's camp and ruthlessly eliminated all who supported Stannis. Truly a man of resolve. Our primary adversary is not the distant foreign conqueror in the Riverlands. Stannis is poised to attack King's Landing, and he is our foremost threat. Oh, and if I may suggest, we should engage in dialogue with Stannis. After all, we are all usurpers who have snatched the Iron Throne from House Targaryen. The spoils of this usurpers' war should be jointly safeguarded. With dragons and a new conqueror emerging in the Riverlands, perhaps we should endeavor to negotiate with them, uniting to face the pressure of the dragons together. After Tyrion finished speaking, Cersei narrowed her eyes slightly and retorted, "My son is the king. We should not deliberate with traitors like Stannis." The queen, ever the astute power player molded by the fires of civil war, was resolute. Just as she had once spurned an alliance with the North against the White Walkers, her primary concern was to remain in King's Landing with her husband and son. As long as there were no troubles knocking at her door, she felt secure. The only imminent threat now was Stannis, poised to attack King's Landing. Indeed, that fool Stannis. If he dares to show his face beneath the walls of my city, I shall ensure he receives a proper welcome. Joffrey tightened his grip on his sword, and Tyrion, witnessing this, shook his head wearily, thinking, "There is no saving this. Let it all come to ruin swiftly. I am exhausted." "Very well, in that case, I shall immediately urge the commander of the city defenses to secure King's Landing." Meanwhile, in the grand realm of the Ming Dynasty, Emperor Zhu Yuanzhang was in a state of exhilaration. On the luminous screen of the Dimensional Gate, he could faintly glimpse the scenes of the Ming expeditionary forces. Of course, these images were deliberately projected by Zhu Zhen for his benefit. When he witnessed Zhu Zhen's swift attack on Gaudi City, earning renown in a single battle, Zhu Yuanzhang clapped his hands in delight. "It seems this world is nothing remarkable. With such a ragtag army, we, the old Sixth, can dispatch them without even employing firearms." However, when Zhu Yuanzhang beheld the awe-inspiring sight of the cataclysmic frost dragon through Zhu Zhen's perspective, he was left utterly astounded. Such a creature, a true legend, existed indeed. The fact that Zhu Zhen could harness its power was terrifyingly impressive. Zhu Yuanzhang was beside himself with excitement. Yet, he also noted a deficiency within the Ming expeditionary force. As Zhu Zhen advanced, he realized that this world was indeed vast, akin to the Ming realm. The forces on Zhu Zhen's side appeared insufficient. Although he had seen Zhu Zhen incorporate some troops, it was hardly a sustainable solution. The next time the Dimensional Gate opened, he must ensure to replenish the army. As 6 months drew near, Zhu Yuanzhang, after conferring with his civil and military officials, summoned Zhu Di. "What? Me?" Upon learning that he was to lead 3,000 cavalry and siege artillery to the Game of Thrones world as the Grand General of the Empire's expeditionary force assisting Zhu Zhen, Zhu Di was astonished. What a magnificent otherworld it would be. Dragons, wildlings, sorcerers, knights, I'm coming for you, mighty steeds. Just the thought of those blonde-haired, blue-eyed exotic figures from the Game of Thrones filled Zhu Di with excitement. After all, the constraints imposed by his wife at home were rather strict. On this day, the people finally recalled the terror once commanded by dragons. In Green Valley City, nestled within the ancient castle by the banks of the Blue Boon River, the forces of House Tyrell, led by Duke Mace, were encamped. This stronghold belonged to the Midu family of the River Bay region. The flag atop the castle is adorned with a green shield encircled by a myriad of vibrant flowers, representing the sigil of House Tyrell. It is situated by the banks of the Blueburn River, in proximity to Storm's End, merely a day or two's journey from the Baratheon stronghold. As for Storm's End, it has now become the domain of Stannis. Just over 2 weeks ago, the untimely demise of Renly sent Duke Mace into a state of shock and despair. All his sacrifices seemed to dissolve in an instant with Renly's passing. For Renly, he had even risked his daughter, Marjorie, and his son. Loras quietly professed that Renly was his true love. In short, the head of House Tyrell nearly succumbed to grief, but fortunately, the steadfast Loras continued to rally the Tyrell forces against Stannis after Renly's death. He commandeered Renly's supplies and executed many loyalists, primarily those aligned with House Florent. His wife's family. By leveraging this supply advantage, he managed to stabilize his troops' morale, and under Duke Mace's guidance, he adeptly led the combined forces. His presence rendered Stannis' ambition to completely subjugate House Tyrell a daunting task. Otherwise, he would have to consider whether this iron-willed man might retaliate with devastating force. At this moment, Duke Mace and Loras Tyrell were conferring with their subordinates to devise their forthcoming battle strategies. The presence of Ser Joffrey had inadvertently triggered a butterfly effect, subtly altering the course of events. Initially, Loras was meant to accompany Ser Mattis to locate the forces of Duke Tywin Lannister and guide them to the assembled armies and fleet under Duke Mace, thereby joining the Lannisters in combat against Stannis in the historically renowned Battle of Blackwater. However, due to Ser Joffrey's arrival, they found themselves not in King's Landing, but in Highgarden. Loras, appearing to be in his 40s, wore a serious countenance, rarely smiling, with a short, bristly beard. He was attired in a deep green silk gown, edged with white fur, and at his waist hung a formidable two-handed greatsword, Heartbreaker, the ancestral Valyrian steel blade of House Tarly. It was rumored that the nefarious invader had already begun his northward march with his dragon legion. And I commanded you to swiftly dispatch 100 men to establish sentry posts between Highgarden and Highvale. Yes, my lord, responded a young man in his 20s, Sir Ewood, Baron of Highvale. I cannot help but wonder how my mother fares. After his departure, Duke Mace spoke. Although the Thorn Queen publicly professed her allegiance to Ser Joffrey, he understood that this arrangement resembled that of a puppet. The conqueror, Ser Joffrey, required the Thorn Queen merely to extend his influence, and nothing more. It was somewhat akin to the ancient practice of using an emperor to command the feudal lords, at least in the majority of the Riverlands. Their family indeed wielded more power than the king himself. Yet, it was evident that the Thorn Queen had been rendered powerless. As far as current intelligence indicated, no members of House Tyrell from Highgarden held positions within Ser Joffrey's army. Alas, we find ourselves in dire straits, unable to return home. The Duke of Mace lamented. Behind them, the formidable Stannis of Wind's Rest loomed ominously, with no possibility of retreating to their ancestral abode, which had been usurped by Zhu Zhen. They were indeed caught between a rock and a hard place. They now commanded the majority of forces in the northern part of the Riverbend, while the southern regions seemed to acknowledge only Old Town, with no other territories swearing fealty. From the current situation, we still hold the advantage. The advantage is mine, declared Landau Tarly confidently. He possessed the elite forces of the entire Riverbend. The Southern Guardians were fully committed. They boasted an impressive array of over 10,000 elite soldiers, more than 30,000 guards, and around 50,000 militia. However, despite the grand claim of 100,000 troops, only about 50,000 were truly combat capable, as the remaining 50,000 militia primarily served logistical and supply roles, lacking battle experience. Originally, they had more manpower, but following the upheaval after the death of Balon, they had lost considerable strength. Yet, according to existing intelligence, that fellow commanded at least 4 dragons. The Duke of Mace sighed bitterly. After all, dragons cannot easily be concealed. Their massive size ensures that even if kept within a castle, their presence cannot go unnoticed. For colossal dragons, sufficient to counter an army of over 20,000. When one considers this, it appears our advantage is not as substantial as we had presumed. It is said that he also possesses the elite forces of Old Town. The Duke of Mace expressed his concerns, for dragons had not graced the sight of men for over a century, and he could only speculate on the terrifying power they wielded, knowing only that they were undoubtedly fearsome weapons. Regrettably, the fleet could not offer any assistance. Otherwise, with their support, we might have been able to withstand the onslaught of dragons. The Duke of Mace lamented. Historically, there had indeed been instances where fleets triumphed over dragons, akin to the Navy's engagements with the Air Force. During the tumult of the Blood Dragon's rampage, the The dragon vortex was struck by countless heavy crossbow bolts, one piercing its neck. Severely wounded, Vortex spewed forth scalding black blood and smoke, succumbing to death less than an hour after descending upon Dragonstone. Of course, what the Duke of Maze was unaware of was that this was due to the diminished size and power of dragons following the waning of magical tides, which allowed the crossbow to pierce their flesh. The dragons of the Conqueror's War had once annihilated fleets en masse. Meanwhile, Zhu Zhen's dragons were colossal relics of Valyria, each measuring dozens of meters. Days later, Zhu Zhen made his way to the Fruit Wine Hall. The Fruit Wine Hall was the nearest castle in the northern part of Highgarden, belonging to House Fossaway. It lay along the banks of the Mander River, to the northeast of Highgarden. The Lord of House Fossaway was an ancient lineage with bloodlines tracing back to the Age of Heroes. It was said their history was even older than that of the Undals. However, to Zhu Zhen, this was of little consequence. The essence of ancient relics lies in their preservation. Without them, history itself would fade into oblivion. A week prior, he received word of the Duke of Mice's advance to the south. This fellow had taken refuge in Green Valley City after the turmoil at Windrest Fortress, gathering the strength of various lords in preparation for his southern expedition. Yet, was Zhu Zhen not also accumulating his strength and readiness for a northern campaign? Presently, Zhu Zhen's formidable Dragon Legion, the Old Town Legion, under Zhu En's command, has commenced its march toward the Poplar Strand, where they are likely to encounter the vanguard of Landalter. Meanwhile, Zhu Zhen himself advances toward the Fruit Wine Hall, accompanied not only by the Divine Martial Guard but also by the vanguard of the High Court Legion, alongside Frost Dragons and Red Dragons. As for the Horned Ridge Legion and Muing, they remain stationed in the rear, vigilant against unforeseen events. Soon, atop the walls of the Fruit Wine Hall, Sir Tantong Fossway, adorned in armor emblazoned with a golden apple motif, inhaled deeply. By the heavens! After months of fervently wishing upon stars and moons for the Conqueror to refrain from a northern incursion, it seems the Conqueror's wrath has indeed descended upon them. At present, 3,000 guards have congregated within the castle of Fruit Wine Hall. Despite receiving reinforcements from House Tiller and mustering a considerable number of militia to bolster their ranks, trepidation grips their hearts. Sir Tantong's face contorted in distress, while his cousin, Sir Edwy Fossway, bore an even heavier countenance, yet maintained his composure, urgently declaring, "Quickly, send word. We are under attack from the Conqueror. Prompt assistance is needed. Depart from the eastern gate at once." Edwy then cast his gaze upon the vanguard of Zhu Zhen's army, a cavalry contingent exceeding 1,000 strong. Cavalry, the undisputed sovereign of the cold weapon era, possesses the power to dictate the battlefield. A large-scale cavalry charge can indeed trample all opposition, effortlessly cleaving through foes even when outnumbered. In open combat, cavalry against infantry results in a one-sided massacre. However, this time, Zhu Zhen's forces face a fortified city. Utilizing cavalry for siege warfare is an imprudent strategy on the ancient battlefield, unless one possesses siege weaponry. Amidst the somber and resounding sound of the horn, Sir Edwy gazed at the approaching High Court Legion, his expression increasingly grave. Yet, in an instant, his eyes fixated on the grand standard at the center of the army. There fluttered a banner inscribed with the 4 characters of the great Ming Empire. This kingdom was entirely unfamiliar to him. "Fear not. We have the walls to protect us. Their cavalry cannot breach our defenses," Sir Edwy proclaimed confidently as he turned to Sir Tantong. Suddenly, however, Sir Tantong's complexion drained of color, and he gasped in horror. What did he behold? One beast. 2 beasts. 2 monstrous creatures. Swiftly hurtling towards them, one dragon exhaled a haunting azure flame, while the other unleashed a fiery crimson blaze. In an instant, a terrifying wave of searing heat threatened to incinerate everything in its path, nearly engulfing Sir Edware. "Jump down." Sir Tantong, quick-witted and agile, seized Sir Edware and leapt from the towering wall, more than 10 meters high. Just behind them, the entire wall was transforming into a raging inferno. In the wake of this chaos, the anguished wails of countless soldiers pierced the air, their cries echoing with heart-wrenching despair. Gazing into the abyss of King's Landing, Duke Mace surrendered. While cavalry may not be effective for besieging, Zhu Zhen could obliterate the walls that hindered them. The war had reached its conclusion the moment the colossal dragon scorched the fortifications. Over 1,000 cavalry charged forth, galloping into the ruins of the walls as if traversing an uninhabited realm, unstoppable. Amid the roars of the dragon, the screams of the city's defenders, consumed by dragon fire, reverberated in a horrific symphony. On this day, the populace was reminded of the terror once wielded by dragons. Simultaneously, Zhuan at White Beach had accomplished his objective. The scene at White Beach was one of utter devastation. Hours earlier, the Black Dragon had descended, casting a shadow over the vanguard led by Landetali, which numbered over 10,000. Thus, Landetali bore witness to the annihilating power of this ancient creature. In the dragon's contemptuous gaze, the elite cavalry of House Tali, renowned for their glory and hailed as the mightiest and most loyal warriors of Rivervale, crumbled like parchment. In an instant, they were reduced to mere ashes in the burning embers. Those not directly scorched by the dragon's breath were consumed by the ensuing flames. With the assistance of the Black Dragon rider Zhu, the Old Town's legion of over 1,000 triumphed against a coalition 10 times their number. Meanwhile, Landetali, engulfed in existential doubt and profound unease, was pulled away from the battlefield by his knightly retinue. When they regrouped at Long Table Fortress, the coalition had dwindled from over 10,000 to fewer than 3,000. As night fell, Landetali slumped in the Knight's Hall of Long Table Fortress, seated amongst the grim-faced vassals of House Tilly who had just escaped the battlefield. Each bore the marks of despair, their eyes vacant, as if they had emerged from the depths of hell. The mere thought of that terrifying black dragon, a monstrous creature towering several meters high, still sent shivers down their spines. Where was their morale? Where was their fighting spirit? Yet this was merely in the face of one dreadful dragon. It must be noted that the conqueror Zhu Zhen commanded 4 dragons. Observing the scene outside the castle, where White Beach lay, Landetali's increasingly aged gaze grew even more troubled. For the elite of House Tali had been at the forefront of today's battlefield, suffering the brunt of the Black Dragon's devastating assault. Now, scarcely any remained. He understood that everything was lost. Meanwhile, on Bayong Beach, flames illuminated the entire shore, in stark contrast to the charred bodies scattered across the nearby battlefield. The men here reveled in their triumph, their bare chests aglow in the firelight as they drank heartily and cheered exuberantly, celebrating the monumental victory they had secured that day. Despite the heavy toll they had endured, with nearly half their comrades perishing, the fruits of their victory remained unshaken. They indulged in fine wines and feasted on roasted lamb and beef seized from the River Bay Coalition, casting aside the spoils of war, gold, weapons, and even severed limbs gleaned from their foes. Everyone joined in the fervent celebration of this grand triumph. At the forefront stood the Black Dragon Knight, Zhu, mounted atop the formidable Black Dragon, the sole authority of this legion under Zhu Zhen and a Dragon Knight of the Ming army. He remained ever vigilant for his safety, having tacitly permitted the banquet of the Old Town Legion while maintaining his guard. To his astonishment, he had not anticipated the Black Dragon's terrifying combat prowess, capable of annihilating legions of thousands. He cast a glance at the Black Dragon beneath him, which was voraciously devouring a full-grown ram, its fangs glistening menacingly. Such a creature was indeed a fearsome force. If brought back to the Ming, it could effortlessly lay waste to cities. This was nothing short of a strategic weapon, far more terrifying than artillery. The thought that he was the only Black Dragon Knight in the Ming Empire filled Zhu with exhilaration. He had become a figure of reverence. All of this stemmed from his allegiance to his master, Zhu Zhen. Perhaps, if he could aid the Ming in this grand expedition and conquer this vast world, he would earn a place in the illustrious achievements of His Highness, the King of Chu. Such everlasting glory was a dream he had never dared to entertain before. Just as Zhu lost himself in these thoughts, a similarly immense shadow descended from the sky. Instinctively alert, he soon recognized the figure soaring downwards and was overwhelmed with joy. Only Zhu Zhen could command such a chilling and formidable entity as the Frost Giant Dragon among the entire Ming army. His Highness, the King of Chu, had arrived. At that moment, Zhu Zhen flew from the Fruit Wine Hall to Bayong Beach, spotting the Black Dragon devouring its prey from afar. He promptly commanded the Frost Giant Dragon to approach. His primary purpose was to find Zhu and arrange the tasks ahead. Your Highness. Zhu bowed deeply. Zhu Zhen nodded. You and your legion will depart for the Fruit Wine Hall at dawn tomorrow and establish your encampment there. Also, ensure that the damaged city walls are repaired somewhat to restore their semblance. After issuing his command, Zhu was left utterly perplexed. Why? We have just achieved such a significant victory. We should pursue the enemy while we are in high spirits. As the saying goes, one must seize the momentum to annihilate the foe. Instead of retreating and providing the Riverbend Coalition an opportunity to catch their breath, Zhu harbored no doubts. He understood that he had no standing to question the man before him. Indeed, Zhu acquiesced. Zhu Zhen, without lingering, returned directly to Highgarden. The victorious Highgarden Legion and the Divine Martial Guard would return together at dawn. Surely, Duke Mace would not dare to contemplate a southern advance again. Zhu Zhen, too, aspired to seize the moment to march northward, annihilating Tyrell, and perhaps even capturing King's Landing. Yet, his current forces were woefully inadequate, unable to muster even 10,000 men. Occupying the major cities of the Seven Kingdoms would necessitate dividing his troops, leaving him critically short-handed, unable even to maintain order in the cities. He found himself in a dire predicament. Clearly, he could not fulfill the next phase of his plans at this juncture, so he awaited Zhu Yuanzhang's reinforcements. In less than 2 weeks, the dimensional gate would open, and he would receive Zhu Yuanzhang's next support. Presently, he wished to remain discreet, avoiding becoming a target for all. Rather than rushing headlong into King's Landing to engage in the Battle of the Blackwater, proclaiming himself an enemy of all, it was wiser to accumulate wealth quietly, striking decisively when the various factions were weakened after the battle's conclusion. This was his strategy. Contemplating this, Zhu Zhen gazed into the distance, towards the decaying and extravagant realm of King's Landing. Fight on, if you must, Stannis, Tywin, and Joffrey. He, along with the Frost Dragon, shared the same gaze upon King's Landing. Under the cloak of night, the ethereal blue flames, fused with the skeletal structure of the dragon, were as profound as an abyss. To Zhu Zhen's astonishment, mere days after the Battle of White Harbor, Duke Mace had surrendered. He appeared in the Knights' Hall of Highgarden, accompanied by Loras Tyrell. But the world had changed utterly. In just a few months, the Lord of Highgarden had returned as a mere prisoner. Should Zhu Zhen reject his subservience, he would surely remain in chains. If he had any other choice, would he have resorted to this? Alas, following the Battle of White Harbor, his most formidable ally, Loras Tyrell, had met a crushing defeat, utterly devoid of resilience. At that time, through scouts, Loras learned that Zhu Zhen had dispatched a dragon legion to White Harbor, and thus he led the elite of House Tyrell, brimming with confidence, as the vanguard. He even brought along crossbows capable of launching massive arrows over a meter in length, intending to obliterate this dragon legion and slay their dragons, hoping to demonstrate to these foreign conquerors the might of House Tyrell. Little did he expect that these crossbows would be utterly ineffective against the Black Dragon's armored hide. The battle ended in a rout, resulting in the near annihilation of House Tyrell's elite forces. Upon hearing the news, Duke Mace was reduced to tears. What could he do? Even with over 30,000 troops still capable of fighting, none were elite, and Zhu Zhen possessed 4 dragons. Such an extravagant display of military might instantly compel Duke Mace to yield. Coincidentally, his favored King Lancel had just perished, and the seemingly destined conqueror of the Seven Kingdoms, Zhu Zhen, was now in his homeland. He refrained from further protest and surrendered, casting aside the shadows for the light. The swiftness of his submission would grant him the honor of being a founding hero. In the Grand Hall, Duke Mace paid his respects to Zhu Zhen, proclaiming, "Great Conqueror Ying, reborn, King Zhu Zhen, I, your vassal, the head of the Tyrell family, Duke of Highgarden, Guardian of the South, offer you my most devout loyalty." Zhu Zhen regarded the elderly gentleman before him with keen interest, although he was unaware of the reasons behind the man's willingness to submit. He brought with him an army exceeding 70,000 strong. Yet, if this old man intended to regard himself as the reincarnation of Conqueror Ying, supporting Zhu Zhen's ascension to the throne of the Seven Kingdoms while retaining his role as the Guardian of the South, he was sorely mistaken. Should Zhu Zhen achieve dominion over the Seven Kingdoms, the old aristocrats, proud of their mercenary heritage, would be completely stripped of their power. Their rights and status could be preserved, but governance must spring from military might. The authority of arms could not be relinquished entirely to the lords. Of course, the matter of disarming the nobility would have to wait until after their triumph. For now, Zhu Zhen saw no reason to shatter the old man's illusions. Very well, Lord Mace. The Great Ming accepts your submission. The Great Ming Empire welcomes your allegiance. The Great Ming Empire? Duke Mace could no longer contain his curiosity. My king, might I inquire as to the true strength of the Great Ming Empire? Our Great Ming boasts a formidable army of millions. Our population is beyond counting. What I have brought is merely the vanguard of the Great Ming Empire. Yet, to conquer your 7 kingdoms, we need not exert ourselves. A mere slight mobilization of our forces would suffice. Zhu Zhen declared unabashedly. Yet, he wondered if this information had reached Zhu Yuanzhang. Had anyone else made such claims, Duke Mace would have dismissed them as mere boastfulness. However, when Zhu Zhen spoke, the Duke could hardly maintain his composure. Wang Defa, how could such a terrifying kingdom exist in this world? It is utterly astonishing. Yet, why have I never heard of it before? Marriage alliances? I beg your pardon, but I have no need for such. The price of surrender, naturally, would be steep. What Duke Mace had not anticipated was that by the following day, he would begin to regret his decision to surrender. His military authority had been diluted by Zhu Zhen. Ultimately, Entrusting a volatile army to his command was a source of concern for Zhu Zhen. Disbanding and reorganizing the forces was undoubtedly a more prudent approach than allowing Duke Mace to lead them directly. 50,000 militia were transformed into logistical support for Zhu Zhen's Grand Army, while over 20,000 guards were integrated into various dragon legions. Among them, more than half were assigned to the Old Town Legion, as this unit, having triumphed in the Battle of White Ocean Beach, had developed its own unique honor and sense of belonging, making them more likely to pledge their loyalty to the Great Ming. Following the recent conflict, the Old Town Legion suffered a significant reduction in its active forces, losing half of its manpower. As a result, Zhu Zhen prioritized allocating resources to them. The most crucial reason, however, was that Zhu Zhen was reluctant to allow the Highgarden Legion to amass too many troops, as this legion had a long-standing affinity with the Tyrell family. Should they receive reinforcements from the Tyrells, the future allegiance could become ambiguous, raising questions about whether they would remain loyal to the Zhu or align with the Tyrells. Meanwhile, Lan Daotali was dispatched by Zhu Zhen to Green Valley City. Zhu Zhen granted him the authority to continue commanding the remaining elite of the Tali family, contingent upon his ability to secure Green Valley City. This city had become the northernmost strategic point under Zhu Zhen's jurisdiction following the surrender of Duke Mace. In the southern region of Riverbend, Zhu Zhen was also active, sending several dragon legions to visit each castle, greeting them in a rather physical manner. After a period of enthusiastic interactions and sincere exchanges, the southern part of Riverbend had, within 2 weeks, largely submitted to Zhu Zhen's influence. Amidst Zhu Zhen's efforts to consolidate his power, the Battle of Blackwater erupted in King's Landing. Due to the ripple effects initiated by Zhu Zhen, Tywin Lannister was unable to secure the fleet's support from the Tyrell family, and thus could not swiftly launch a surprise attack from the sea against Stannis. However, the outcome remained largely unchanged. After Stannis had breached the walls of King's Landing, Tywin and his coalition forces arrived, encircling the King's Landing army that was retreating towards the palace. Following the arduous struggle that ensued after the fall and subsequent recapture of King's Landing, King Joffrey managed to preserve his life, albeit at a tremendous cost. The battle claimed over 100,000 lives, with civilians suffering even greater casualties, as their bodies lay strewn amidst the chaos. In the aftermath of his narrow victory, Tywin Lannister held a grand ceremony to celebrate his appointment as Hand of the King. Yet his internal anxieties remained unassuaged. In the north, the young wolf, despite severing his own arm and alienating the Stark branch of the Karstark family, continued to pose a considerable threat. Stannis, having fled, still harbored ambitions and could return at any moment. What terrified Tywin most, however, was the south. Reliable reports indicated that Duke Mace had surrendered with his army of 70,000 to the conqueror Zhu Zhen, who declared himself the emperor of the great Ming Empire. With formidable strength and 4 fearsome dragons at his command, Zhu Zhen was a force to be reckoned with, especially as Tywin had just suffered a significant setback. Tywin felt overwhelmed by a multitude of pressing issues, particularly concerning his inept grandson, King Joffrey, who continued to act as though he possessed unparalleled wisdom. Had it not been for Joffrey's reckless execution of Ned Stark, their situation in the north would not have been so dire, and they might have secured powerful allies. However, Tywin was acutely aware that the pressing priority was to unite all possible forces to address the pressing issues at hand. To confront the king was, without a doubt, an act of sheer folly. Hence, he acquiesced to the counsel of the recently liberated imp, Tyrion, proposing to wed Queen Cersei's daughter, Myrcella, to the conqueror, Joffrey. The intention was to stabilize the situation through a diplomatic marriage, a decision that, at the very least, seemed prudent. Thus, he summoned Cersei and Tyrion. What? Myrcella to be wed to a conqueror? Upon hearing her father's decree, Cersei erupted like a protective lioness. Initially, she was set to marry her off to Dorne, and now she was to be betrothed to a foreigner of such lowly stature? What do you take her for? A mere pawn to be manipulated at will. Cersei glared menacingly at Tyrion. Let me guess, this was your idea? She is a princess, not one of the harlots you cavort with in brothels. In response to Cersei's vitriol, Tyrion merely shrugged. While Tywin stated with undeniable authority, the matter is already decided. No, I cannot agree. Father, you cannot do this. Then what would you have me do? If it were not for your son's misdeeds, would we be compelled to contend with the Starks at all? Now, enemies abound in King's Landing. Do you not comprehend this? We are surrounded by adversaries, and such a course is destined for ruin. A capable leader must understand the art of forging alliances, just as a dutiful daughter should alleviate her father's burdens. Tywin, with unassailable command, declared, "Tomorrow, let the King's Guard escort Myrcella to Highgarden, accompanied by the diplomatic envoy." When the envoy arrived at Highgarden, Joffrey was meticulously studying maps, contemplating the most efficient strategy for assaulting King's Landing. In 2 days, the Dimensional Gate would once again open, and he would receive 3,000 elite troops from the Ming Dynasty. Surely, this time, with 6 months of thorough preparation, Zhu Yuanzhang would furnish him with even more weaponry. Consequently, he was eager to devise the marching routes. In recent days, his primary focus had been on cultivating the Incense Jade Codex and comprehending the Heavenly Crystal. Whenever he had spare time, he would peruse the maps for marching routes. Currently, bolstered by his extraordinary insights, his Incense Jade Codex had reached the Supreme Yang realm, while the Celestial Treasure had ascended to the 3rd tier. It must be said, the speed of his progress was truly remarkable. At that moment, he unexpectedly received tidings of the diplomatic marriage from King's Landing, a marriage alliance. Myrcella? Upon hearing the soldier's announcement, Joffrey finally comprehended. Myrcella Baratheon? Shouldn't she be referred to as Myrcella Lannister? After all, her father was her own uncle. However, if he had to choose a marriage partner, Joffrey could only express apologies. But compared to the 14 or 15-year-old Myrcella, I have a preference for the more mature, such as Queen Cersei. Ah, what was that saying? Isn't the path paved by others more enticing? Must one truly carve a new path, only to bear the wounds of such a venture? The pain is undeniable. Of course, in Zhu Zhen's eyes, there exists no necessity to align himself with the likes of Chow. After all, even when it comes to women, he prefers to conquer through strength. And he could easily seize control of King's Landing. Moreover, Cersei is not one to be trifled with. Her malice is beyond what ordinary souls can endure. As for the potential alliance, Zhu Zhen fears the toxicity of such a union. That would indeed be dramatic. The first fleet of the Ming Expeditionary Force. You may leave. I am aware. And do remember to send the Imperial Guard away, Zhu Zhen commanded. This decision was overheard by Marjorie, who was serving tea. Are you preparing to refuse the marriage alliance with King's Landing? She could not help but inquire once the guards departed. Certainly. I have no need for such a degrading alliance, Zhu Zhen replied nonchalantly, before returning to his map. However, Marjorie continued, yet, if you were to forge an alliance with King's Landing, it would be profoundly beneficial to your conquest of the 7 kingdoms. By aligning with King's Landing and the Lannisters of Casterly Rock, you would instantly secure a coalition of 2 formidable powers. You could then conquer House Baratheon of Storm's End, leaving no adversaries south of King's Landing. As Marjorie spoke, Zhu Zhen interrupted her by gently grasping her chin. Gazing into her doe-like, luminous eyes, he remarked, "You are indeed an astute woman. If you wish to showcase your wisdom, I might consider entrusting you with the management of Highgarden in the future. Surely, you possess the capability to govern far better than your father. However, beyond the walls of Highgarden, I require no cleverness from you. Better if there is none at all." This was not a threat. Zhu Zhen simply believed that Marjorie's vision was still too narrow. The expedition of the Ming Empire demands no degrading alliances. He offers the people of the 7 kingdoms but 2 choices, submission or death. As for schemers like Tywin and Cersei, Zhu Zhen sees no necessity for their presence, merely a source of unnecessary trouble. Ultimately, Zhu Zhen naturally declined the marriage alliance, yet chose to retain Myrcella. It is said that Cersei is exceedingly beautiful, possessing the Lannister family's signature golden curls and emerald eyes, with an alluring figure. Naturally, Zhu Zhen found himself intrigued by the lady. However, Cersei has aged and lost her charm, while it is rumored that Myrcella has inherited all her mother's beauty, resembling a younger Cersei. Out of curiosity, Zhu Zhen received Myrcella. Unlike Marjorie, who resembled a blooming red rose, Myrcella appeared as a pristine white rose. In comparison to her brother Joffrey, she appeared as pure and innocent as a blank canvas, accentuated by the presence of a rogue. Indeed, her complexion was remarkably fair, akin to the creamy whiteness of milk, which was evident in her unblemished skin. Her golden curls cascaded down to her waist, tranquil and serene, while her delicate visage resembled the tender hues of dawn, her large, crescent-shaped eyes reminiscent of a waning moon. Though she possessed a certain fragility, she exuded elegance and grace. Approaching Zhu Zhen, she respectfully curtsied, greeting him with a soft, "Good afternoon, my lord." "No need for formalities," he replied. "I have heard that you have been sent by King's Landing for a marriage alliance." Unbeknownst to Myrcella, Zhu Zhen had already dismissed the King's Guard who accompanied her to the capital. She had assumed that her betrothed, the new lord of the capital, the conqueror Zhu Zhen, would be a portly gentleman old enough to be her father. To her astonishment, he appeared quite youthful. After all, despite his mature demeanor, Zhu Zhen was merely 17. Myrcella responded obediently, "I shall defer to your preferences, my lord. I will follow your arrangements." You need not stand on ceremony here. Consider it your home. Zhu Zhen said graciously, taking her delicate, fair hand in his own and bestowing a gentle kiss upon her pristine knuckles. Misela momentarily froze, as it was evidently her first experience with such intimate gestures, instinctively retracting her hand. However, Zhu Zhen held her firmly, observing the young lady, who resembled a fawn in her innocence. He commanded his maids, "Very well, take Miss Misela to her quarters at the Rose Manor." As Misela departed, Marjorie was taken aback. "My lord, did you not say you had no intention of pursuing a marriage alliance? Is this not a contradiction?" she questioned, puzzled. "You previously expressed your desire to maintain your status." Zhu Zhen, slightly vexed by her words, retorted, "Do you not comprehend the significance of appearances? Given Misela's beauty, my actions are entirely justified. After all, having such a captivating lady in my vicinity is a source of delight. It is said that beauty can prolong one's life. Those who doubt it should try bringing a beauty home for themselves." In response to the young Marjorie's inquiry, Zhu Zhen replied nonchalantly, "Naturally, I have dismissed the King's Guard, thus nullifying the marriage alliance. Then why allow Misela to remain here? Shouldn't she be sent back?" Marjorie could not help but interject. To her surprise, Zhu Zhen answered with the same indifference, "Send her back? Why should I return someone I have rightfully retained? Eventually, Misela will belong to me. Conquering King's Landing is merely a matter of time. This is simply an early fulfillment of that promise." Zhu Zhen spoke with conviction, asserting that a prize won by merit should not be relinquished. "If you disagree, come to the capital and challenge me. Furthermore, this course of action is in Misela's best interest. Otherwise, once she reaches Dorne, she would surely face dire consequences." Marjorie, upon hearing this, was rendered speechless, recognizing the logic in his reasoning, yet feeling utterly unable to refute it. The conqueror from a distant land seems to disregard the antiquated rules of Westeros. Yet, as the conqueror of the Seven Kingdoms, he is indeed a breaker of conventions. The new regulations may very well be established by Zhu Zhen himself. Marjorie found herself at a loss for words regarding this. Suddenly, a thought struck her. "Ah, my lord. My father mentioned that the fleet from the Riverlands you requested is currently docked at the Mander Sea and Old Town. He has summoned you for a council." Upon hearing this, Zhu Zhen's face lit up with joy. The Riverlands, lacking any coastal regions to the east, have most of their harbors concentrated in the southwest. The eastern coastline is divided between the formidable forces of Dorne and Storm's End, with the Storm's End and the Cape of Wrath lying outside the Riverlands. However, as the protectors of the Shield Islands and Old Town, the fleet of Highgarden is substantial, even surpassing that of the Royal Navy. Gaining control over such a fleet would undoubtedly provide immense support for the Daming expedition plans. The last time Zhu Zhen captured Old Town, he was unable to secure control of the Tyrell Navy. With the fleet anchored in the harbor and at sea, his army found it challenging to seize it. This time, however, Duke Mace is even willing to entrust all his ships to Zhu Zhen. He is prepared to relinquish the Tyrell family's control over the fleet. This essentially marks the establishment of the first fleet of the Daming expeditionary forces within the realm of Game of Thrones. Naturally, this is not without its strings attached. In Highgarden, where the military is fragmented and the family wealth has been exhausted, the beleaguered Duke Mace has stipulated that Zhu Zhen must agree to a particular condition. Zhu Zhen, of course, would not refuse, provided that the condition set forth by Duke Mace does not infringe upon his bottom line.